The Survivor Specialists are back, and today we are beginning a brand new air quotes series. It's really a rehash of an old series, but we're updating it. We're discussing it again. We are doing Winning Survivor, and today I am joined by Wes from Once Upon an Island. We're going to be talking about Borneo through Thailand. If you've been following along with both of our channels since around season 40, we did this series after season 40. We were doing four players per episode. We were, just talking. We had no idea what we were really doing. Now I've had 5 more years, 6 more years to build up my thoughts. Wes, you've had 6 more years. You were so new in the community back then. Now you've been around for a while, and we're doing 5 people per episode. So we've made our lives even more of a difficult experience here, because it used to be 4 and those were still 2 hours when I was going back and looking at those episodes. Now we're going to do 5, but we've already done this before. So we'll see how this goes. Right. But I'm happy to be revisiting this after season 50. I feel like that's a really good thing. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Everyone, I hope my audio is better than usual. I literally bought a microphone specifically for this series. Usually I use like a microphone, like a shotgun microphone they use in film for my podcast, but I bought one, like an actual podcasting microphone for our podcast. So hopefully I sound better, because normally people complain I sound different. But otherwise, I'm excited for this. I feel like last time we did this, Phil, literally, what was it, 5-6 years ago? I hadn't watched all of the seasons multiple times. I think I had seen them all once, and once could have been when they aired, maybe recently. It was all over the place. But this time I have watched every season at minimum 2 times, and that includes 50, with the exception of Island of the Idols. I only watched that once, but everything else 2 to 10 times. I would say easily 2 to 10 times.
You have 6 weeks to rewatch Island of the Idols to get Tommy's game if you're looking to do that. I mean, that's my biggest thing coming into this is these early seasons. When we talk about these first 5, I could tell you every detail about their games. The 40s are going to be a little bit tougher for me. I'm gonna have to do some revisiting before we get to those. But I am really excited to dive into this. Obviously, Entertainment Weekly, Dalton Ross had put out the Survivor winner bracket, which was a big deal at the time. Todd Herzog ended up winning that. And I know that caused a lot of drama over on X and Instagram and all the other social media platforms. And I'm excited to dive into some of these older winners, because now with 50, there's so many people who are saying, I just watched Survivor, or I just got into Survivor, or I want to go back and watch them all. Yeah. And I know a lot of people tend to watch out of order nowadays, but if you do want to watch them in order, I think it is so fascinating to see what was different about how you could win Survivor in 2000 and 2001 and 2002 compared to what you have to do nowadays to win a game of Survivor. So yeah, I'm really excited to dive into this, and I'm glad that you've seen every season more times now, because I think that'll really make this easier, especially on these early seasons that I've seen. I mean, I would say these first 5 seasons, including Thailand, I've probably seen each of them 6 times.
Okay. Least. We're well versed. We've established to everyone that we know what we're doing. Now, every time we make a mistake, I need someone to actually me with a correction. Okay. Now that we've said that we know what we're doing.
Yeah. No, and we need that. I mean, this is your definitive series for what it means to win Survivor. So if we screw something up, let us know. Santi Power Show, I feel like will let us know. He's been letting us know likes and on videos and on posts. So if he's letting us know that, he better also let us know some issues that we have and stat corrections as they are needed.
Yeah. Don't let me get away with nothing. I'm just going to start making stuff up, see what people catch.
Yeah. How did we do this last time? So I didn't go back and re-listen. I don't know if you went back and re-listened.
No, I know. It ended up being 20 hours by the time we were done. And to say I re-listened would be a lie. I never re-listened to that podcast, because I feel like as soon as that podcast was done, I was learning more and more information, and it immediately went out of date for me. So as soon as this podcast is done with all 10 weeks, it'll immediately be out of date for me, because I'll know more information. You know what I mean? Feels like I'm always constantly learning, even about these older seasons, which is why I enjoy talking through them, because you'll give me perspectives I hadn't thought about, and hopefully I'll say something that people don't already know. That's kind of the fun for me, is learning something new about something that's existed for 25 years or whatever, 26 years. Yeah, I keep saying 25 because we've missed that 1 year, but
it's just so much easier. It sounds like it was right to say 25.
It sounds like it's right. Yeah.
We're doing a winner ranking starting at the end of June, and we are going to do a 5-parter. So we're going to be doing 10 people per episode, and we're going to be going through the entire month of July with that. And I was going through and trying to rank the winners, and I'll tell you what, kind of like you were saying, this will be outdated for you once we're done talking about it. ranking winners I hate doing. I really do feel like it's the most arbitrary thing, but I'm like, we haven't done it since like the first year or something that we started this podcast. So it's been so long. So we need to do it.
Was it been 10 years for you? 10 years?
I'm on my 11th year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
I'm on my 11th year. But the thing is for me, I sit here and I'm like, okay, well, today I might prefer Aris over Tommy. But if you convince me that Island of the Idols Tommy, not needing any idols or anything like that, played a better game than Aris, then maybe I'll, it's so arbitrary with those middle people. The top and the bottom, I feel like I have a good sense, but the middle is hard. But yeah, I'm excited to just dive into these 5 people, talk about this kind of loose and see where we want to end up with this by the end of this series. And if you guys are sitting here and you're listening to this, you can go back and you can listen to what we did 5 or 6 years ago now. And you can say, damn, they just contradicted themselves nonstop for an hour and 45 minutes.
Wesley sounded like a moron. I agree. I probably did.
That's why I don't go back and listen to anything I previously said. I mean, I say it and then it's out of my head. I don't remember anymore.
Well, hey, let's start this thing off. Who do we have first? I can't even remember the first winners. They're just not iconic.
I know, right? So we today in this episode, we are talking about Richard Hatch, Tina West, and Ethan Zahn, Vecepia, Towery Robinson, and Brian Heidick. We're going through the first 5 winners. And what's funny to me about these 5 winners, as I was kind of getting ready to sit down and say, what are we going to talk about with this, is I don't think new fans can truly appreciate how hard it was to win those earlier seasons of Survivor. Because I do think that new fans are so used to like the chaos and like you had to dodge this bullet, you had to dodge this bullet, you had to dodge this twist and this player, and now you're getting sent to exile or whatever. These are such basic forms of Survivor, even though 3 of these seasons have some sort of twist related to either a tribe swap or a fake merge. But it still was so difficult to just like, it was almost harder to win back then because once you were on the wrong side of the numbers, it was almost impossible to come back from that. And I think that's something that gets lost on new audiences.
Yeah. Especially this season with Richard Hatch. Like it literally seemed impossible to flip anybody, once they hit the merge. So Richard Hatch, man, getting those numbers early, who knew that was like, that's what he needed to do. But people were just so anti-doing it. Even Rudy in his alliance was anti-doing it. He had to convince him. Yeah. Of course, always makes me wonder, like, because there didn't have nearly as many cameras back then. It's like, what did he say to Rudy to finally convince him? Because I feel like when Rudy is convinced, it's like through a confessional, but it's like, okay, well, like, what did Richard say to finally, like, get Rudy to flip to understand I need to do this?
Yeah,
I always wondered.
It probably has something to do with Stacey Stillman, right? It probably has something to do with, hey, Stacey's going to vote you out, and then the producers were like, Rudy, that's true. That's
true, Rudy. Hopefully, we won't be sued over this.
Yeah, hopefully we won't actually admit wrongdoing in this situation. The only time Survivor was actually rigged. But yeah, it's fascinating to watch that because what Richard was doing got him labeled as one of the biggest villains in the history of the show. I mean, a villain immediately. Like everybody said when that season ended, Richard Hatch was a villain. The first winner of Survivor was a villain. Now, what he does on All Stars is obviously villainous in a different way, but what he's doing on this first season isn't villainous at all. He's just walking around with an alliance playing Survivor. There are 0 backstabs on this season. I mean, I guess you could say Sue getting voted out as a backstab, but like somebody in the alliance had to go after 4. Yeah. They let her get down to 4. There's no shifts in power the entire season because nobody even realized that there was power that was happening on the season.
I think Richard Hatch this season did a really good job of managing his alliance and kind of being the glue to his alliance because I feel like without him, Rudy, Sue, and Kelly would have fallen apart. Like that was not an alliance. And it came together. I know that technically, I think the women had an alliance first. Like that's technically the first alliance, but the first alliance actually hold together was because of Hatch. And you see it when they're like fighting with each other. Kelly's like every other episode, I'm Luke Skywalker, Richard Hatch is Darth Vader. I can't work with him. Next episode works with him. But he's like the glue to these 4. And without him, they're not sticking together and going to the end. And it feels like he's rewarded for the win, but it's really because he made the best relationships with 4 out of 7 people. Though I guess what did Jervis say? He flipped his vote because of Sue at Final Tribal, so maybe it was 5. Hatch should have had 5 votes.
Colleen also voted for Kelly, and I think she was like that vote was partially because she was so disgusted with Sue as well. Sue actually damaged Richard's chances of winning. It's almost like in season 50. Stephanie and Chrissy being the ones who were fighting so hard for Jonathan, I think could have cost Jonathan votes. I think the same situation was happening in season 1, where Sue fought so hard for Rich, but the jury hated Sue so much that it actually hurt Rich. Rich could have won the season by 6-1 at the end of the day.
He should have had more votes from what we understand after the season, hearing what everybody said. But in the season, it made sense the 4 votes he did get. And I gotta say, I know that everybody loves to rank winners, and every time I say this, people think I'm joking, but I'm dead serious. Like, I'm with you, Phil. I think ranking winners is arbitrary. I think same thing with seasons, but I think most people generally agree which seasons are the best and can understand when a season they really like is like, I really like Worlds Apart, but I get why people don't really like Worlds Apart. When it comes to winners, though, I feel like there's a lot more variance. And so I like to stick with the strictly how many votes were they off from a perfect game, because that's the only statistic we can measure winners by. And so with Richard Hatch, it's good to mention this because we're going to do this, I think, as we go through the podcast, or at least I'm going to bring it up. Richard Hatch was off by 9 votes. He missed 3 votes in Final Tribal, like we've mentioned, but he also got 6 votes against him during the season. People knew we got to get rid of this guy. He's causing us problems, but they just couldn't get the numbers to do it. Pagong waited way too long to get their act together.
Now, do you punish Richard, though, for being a threat and being able to survive it? Because I think there's also a skill to that. Now, I mean, obviously, season 1 is different, but like as we start getting further into the game, Tony getting votes and Cagayan, do you punish Tony for getting votes and Cagayan for being as abrasive as he was and still being able to survive it?
Well, it just depends on how you look at winner rankings. Like for me, it's like, okay, who's the best winner? Is it defined by what I personally like? Because what I personally like is to be entertained and to see flashy moves and like, not a bunch of luck involved. But if we're going defining best winners by the only statistic that really we can measure them by, then it's by the perfect game stat, by how many votes they were off, which I know not everybody likes. And whenever I bring it up, it's kind of controversial. But if I'm going to rank winners based on who's the best winner, that's how I would do it. But if it's based on how much I like them, no, I don't go by votes against. I would never go by votes against how much I like a winner, which is, how much do I want to rewatch their season? How much do I like a winner is not the same as their votes against. So that's why it's just so arbitrary. Like there's just not, it's like ranking Super Bowl winners. Like, but they all didn't play on the same season against the same teams. And it's hard. And I know it's the same football game. The rules though, like football, like the NFL change over the years in Survivor constantly. Heck, I don't even know what the open era was going to have, again, we're just changing rules, which is fine, but it's just hard to rank winners against each other that way. But Richard Hatch here, the rules were so they didn't know what the rules were. And then you hear them mention things this season where it's like, oh, the merger's coming up. How do you know that?
Yeah.
Like, what are you guys being told that you shouldn't be told? Like, they should know them. Why are they like?
Well, I think the rules were so outlined for them when they signed up. Like it was because they were more worried about it. Yeah, I think it was signed up of like you were going to start as 8 versus 8. At 10, you're going to merge, and then the jury is going to start at 9. Like I think that everything was spelled out for them from the day that they decided they were going to go on the show. Okay,
so that's good to know. See, I don't. If I knew that, I had forgotten it. So that's good to know that they already. Because I'm like, when the moment they mentioned the merger's coming up, I'm like, in no other season Survivor would they be told something big like that's coming up. Basically what would be called now a twist. That back then that should have been a twist, but they were like, the merger's coming up, and I'm like, what have you guys been told? Like, I want to know what you know, because it would kind of like help me inform when I'm thinking about what's happening. Because in my mind, I've always thought they didn't know what they were getting into, and I guess they didn't. They didn't really know what they were getting into. But geez, and then this Borneo location, I got to mention, they never go back to it, and I think now it's a resort. I think I've heard this. Is that accurate?
That I do not know.
Yeah, I feel like that's been mentioned. Of course, Jeff says a lot of things, but I think Jeff was the one that said that they've built a resort there now, so they can't go back there. But like, Jeff says a lot of things. That could be true. I have not looked into it deep enough to know. You know what I mean?
I do not know.
Phil, how did you watch Richard Hatch live when he won? Like, did you watch that season live? When did you jump then?
My first live season was Tina's. So I saw Tina win live, but I did not see Richard win live. I think Richard, everybody knew about, though. Like, I was 8 years old when the first season aired. I knew about Richard Hatch. Like, it was a conversation that parents were having, family was having. We are a big summer birthday family. I'm in January, but pretty much the rest of my family is summer. So you figure as Survivor is airing, starting in May, it was one of those things that my grandma would be talking about, my uncle would be talking about, like people would be talking about this Richard guy, but nobody really
Right.
knew the gravity of what Richard meant for the show.
Mhm.
And I think that's what's also compelling is, you were just talking about did they know what they were getting into? Did they know the rules that they were getting into? The one thing they all knew was that if you got the majority of votes, you were out. And yet
Right.
Richard was the only one who took that information and said, well, let me make sure I'm always going to have the majority of votes.
Yes.
Because Santi Power Show here says, what's the purpose of this series and why revisit every winner? How has your perspective on early Survivor winners changed after winners at war? And so my thing with this is like, what is the purpose? It's looking at how winning Survivor has really changed over the years. Richard Hatch came in, everybody knew what the rules were in terms of how you advanced further in the game. And Richard was the only one who did anything about it to ensure that he was always going to be advancing further in the game. And he took advantage of the fact that people were a little too scared of like going against the alliances. You forget that on this season, most of the people were born in the 60s or the 50s or the 40s. Like,
that's true, like Hatch was like in his 30s, but flip like in 30s and 2000 means you're right. He's born in the 60s.
He's born in the 60s. I think
now
BB, Rudy, and I think Rudy was born in the 20s. Like I think Rudy is 1928, if I'm not mistaken, on his birth year. And so you're really leaning into a lot of people. They're on reality TV. They don't know what that means. They're really worried about what the public perception of them is going to be. The Borneo cast wasn't going out there to be like, oh, I'm trying to make a massive name for myself. I'm going to play the traitors after this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. They were all coming out and they were trying to represent who they were as a person and have this adventure that they didn't really know what it was going to be. And I think Richard took advantage of that. And if Richard Hatch isn't on the first season, everybody says, well, somebody would have figured it out. I don't know if that's true. Like, I don't know if without Richard Hatch, we do see a true 4-person alliance formed in Survivor Borneo. So again, when you talk about winner rankings, yes, he's 9 votes away from a perfect game, but he also invented Survivor. So how arbitrary is that? When you rank seasons, you know what you enjoy and what you don't. Yeah. When it comes down to Survivor winners, it's like, I don't know if anybody else could have done what Richard did, but Richard's game is honestly one of the most basic winning games you will ever see in Survivor history.
It's true. And I think that's why when you go back to when you jump to All-Stars, which I don't, by the way, that doesn't affect how I think of a winner is what they did on prior seasons or seasons after. Like I try to separate the winner into just the season they were on that won, because Richard Hatch on All-Stars, they were like, I remember Lex was like, yeah, but nobody knew what they were doing in Borneo. Like it's a knock against Richard. It's like, yeah, but Richard did. And there was no blueprint. And you got to give him credit for that. And of course, Richard has given himself plenty of credit. Even on the season as airing, he's giving himself plenty of credit. And that arrogance, as he literally says, like could cost him the game. But also like he was just so arrogant in a way that, I don't know, it was a little endearing. It gets less endearing. I feel like the more I see him on other stuff when he is on other shows, but it was endearing the first time around, you know? It's not as endearing in the sequels.
I think what's happened to Richard is he fell into the same thing that a lot of these other people from the earlier seasons fell into, which is now he wants to play the character that defined him so that he'll keep being on other shows.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a line that's being towed by players. Like I think Tyson going on House of Villains, he knows what his persona is supposed to be on House of Villains.
Right.
I think that he's a little bit different how he podcasts and everything. But, you know, I feel like Tyson toes that line of like, what is an act and what is really Tyson?
Sure.
But if you go further back, I think everybody kind of knew the role that they were supposed to fit into. And so when Richard Hatch and Johnny Fairplay are being asked to come back on a House of Villains, they're going to act like villains. And it's not going to feel as authentic as the first version because, again, Richard on season 1 doesn't really feel like all that much of a villain. I mean, there's a snarkiness to him and there's an arrogance to him. There's no doubt about that. Him sitting in the tree, just barking orders at people is incredible TV. One of the most iconic shots of the show. But at the same time, like Richard to the players was actually very nice. He wasn't mean-spirited. He wasn't burning people's socks. He wasn't cutting people's throats just for the sake of it. He was just playing the game. And he was the first one to really realize this is a game. This isn't the adventure you all think it is. This is a game with $1 million prize, which in 2000 was worth a hell of a lot of money.
I think Richard, and this is something you can speak to people who win and people who don't win. Most of his arrogance was contained to his confessionals and to when he was like by himself. Remember when he was with the snake, like by the snake by himself? Iconic scene, by the way. They don't do that kind of stuff anymore. But I feel like if Richard was a villain, then, and of course some people will agree with this anyways, Savannah in 49 was a villain, like same amount of villainy. Like it's really just a matter of perspective, the villainy, because people were like, oh, Richard, you've basically, the moment they realize he's locked this game down and they don't have a chance to win is when people got mad at him in the post-merge. That's really when you see people coming out like, Richard, oh, I hate this guy. But it's like, yeah, because he figured it out and you didn't, so he got you. And that's what they didn't like, really. Yeah. And that he was cocky about it.
And they all wanted it to be merit-based. I mean, you think about Borneo in general, the first two boots are the most obvious first two boots in Survivor history. It's Sonia and it's BB, the two old people on their tribe. BB's essentially asking to be voted out and then tries to change his mind. But like, it's like,
it should have been Rudy, apparently. Should have been Rudy.
It should have been Rudy. So they were really going based off of, okay, like what can you do to help the tribe? And that's why I was really excited when Jenna Lewis was coming out to play on 50, even though she only made it one episode, she still kind of left a different mark than I would have thought because she was playing aggressively. And you think about it, back then, there was no aggression. I mean, obviously, the iconic Gretchen boot is 4-1-1-1-1-1-1. There's 6 ones in that for anybody who's counting at home. It's incredible. I mean, you'll never see another vote like that because people aren't just going to randomly throw their votes. It's essentially, you're going to vote for a politician. You don't want to vote for Republican or Democrats. You vote for somebody who's down party. And imagine now if only you're in a town where there's only 100 people and you're just getting 96 other random people being voted for. Like, it's not even independents who are on there. That's what happened. And most people don't want to throw votes away, whether it's in real life or whether it's in Survivor. And so I think that that's like really interesting and how Rich was able to navigate that. And Rich's best move on the show is the abuse of Dr. Sean's alphabetical order voting strategy. That was the best move he made.
That's something we should do with every winner. I like where you're going at with this, Phil. Every winner, we should what's their best move? Also, what's their biggest blunder? I agree with you. Taking advantage of the alphabet strategy was essential because Kelly, every other episode, flip-flopping on what oh, I'm with them. Oh, I'm not with them. Like, Kelly, make up your mind. But she couldn't make up her mind. So Richard's like, well, we know where one vote is going. We can guarantee we have 4 if we take advantage of Sean. And thankfully, Sean's strategy just happened to be voting for all the Begongs first. I don't know if Sean ever like really, I feel like he knew, but also he didn't acknowledge that that's what he was doing. He's voting for all the Begongs first. Like, he had to know. He was not a moron. He's a doctor. He's Dr. Sean.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, what was it? It was the Jenna boot, right? That's the one where they realized and they said, no, we have to vote out Jenna because they knew that because Jervis had won immunity. It was skipping Jervis and it was going to Jay and all of this. And Rich just said, this is what makes sense. And we have Bobo Joe here saying, or is the best move stepping down, which is another fair question as well. I mean, Hatch has a lot of moves for a season that really couldn't have many moves.
I think the stepping down is an iconic one. I don't think it's his best move. I think I'm with you. Taking advantage of Jenna was the most strategic move. Stepping down, maybe it's a second best move. But I think building the alliance is the best move. But I guess the flashiest move, the move that's like, the most impressive to me is, I'm with you, taking advantage of Sean's vote, because that's like next level. That's next level thinking. That's not just simply voting with my alliance, don't care what everyone else is doing. They did care what everyone else is doing, and they took advantage of that, what everyone else is doing.
Yeah. And then you have Rich when he steps down, like, he's pretty much saying, well, Rudy, you have to take me because you're all about honor and you wouldn't betray me. And Kelly, if you take Rudy, you lose.
You're gonna lose. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was the great move there.
And Kelly, unlike future runner-ups, her goal is not to lose. Her goal is not just to be there and exist. There are runner-ups who I feel like that was not their goal was not to win. Like, they were there to win. That. But I don't know if that was their goal to win, if that makes sense. Well, it will literally be in this podcast. We'll talk about one of them at least. So, Richard, what's his worst move then, Phil? What do you think his worst move is?
What is Richard's worst move? It's hard to know because where was Richard blundering? He got his alliance of 4. he kept, he had Rudy tight. He had Sue and Kelly, who were a pair. Like anything that happened between Sue and Kelly, I can't say was a mistake for him. He knew Gretchen was the biggest threat, so he got rid of her. He knew Greg was the second biggest threat, so he got rid of him. He knew Jenna was waking up, and he knew the alphabet trace, so he got rid of her. Like, is there anything that stands out to you that makes sense?
I asked the question. I didn't have an answer for it already. I try not to.
I don't have an answer for it. I really don't.
His worst move. I think that he couldn't get the alliance together. It took other people going, let's make an alliance to get together. I think that's like, okay, Richard was just ahead, but I don't think Richard had the social ability to build an alliance from scratch. It literally took other people going, okay, let's get together. And Richard's like, well, welcome to the party. I realized this 2 episodes ago, But again, that's not very strong. This is why he got a bunch of votes against him, because people realized they had got. So I guess you could say should have maybe been nicer, but I don't know. Like, because they weren't targeting Rudy or Kelly once they were like, we got to get Hatch. He's the leader. Got to get Hatch. So I guess maybe his worst move was not having somebody else be a bigger target than him, but I think it kind of makes him. I think people like him more because he didn't try to hide behind Kelly or Rudy or Sue.
And you mentioned the 6 votes against him.
Yeah.
So those started happening once they realized he was going to win the game. The Gretchen one, Colleen votes for Richard just because she doesn't like him. The other 5 votes come because they're almost mad at him, like you said, about what's going to happen. And so
after Greg and Jenna votes is when he got all 6 of them.
It was Jenna and it was actually Jenna and the Sue boot.
My apologies. Yeah, Jenna and then Sue. Yeah, again, that Sue vote, that was a tie between her and Richard, and then Kelly. I mean, Richard was a Kelly decision. I don't know what they would. I guess that with the tie, they would have done questions. I don't know what the tiebreaker was.
I mean, they did rocks in Marquesas.
Yeah, but then seasons 2 and 3 they had ties. I think they were in the pre-merge though, and they did questions where they did like, how many votes did you have against you previously? I forget. Which season was what. Season 3, I think it was questions. Season 2, because that's when Varner goes out, is previous votes. So maybe the season would have been previous votes. And at that point, I think Richard loses to Sue. Sue didn't have more.
She didn't have any votes. Sue had 1 vote against her up to
1.
That point.
Yeah, it looks like, So Rich would have been gone had Kelly stuck to her guns.
Yeah, they certainly weren't going to do fire. We know that.
Yeah. Kelly or Sue has to beat Rudy at Final 3, and then it's her versus Sue. Totally different show.
Easily win the season. Yeah, and it is a different show. I don't know if people. I mean, it was still a phenomenon, but I don't know if people would have loved Kelly's win as much as Hatch's. I think Hatch being kind of pompous and stuff, and that helped the show for sure. In terms of worst move, though, like when we're talking about him getting votes once people realized that he had taken over the game and that his alliance was working, that is kind of a move that almost lost him the game, because he does only win by 1 vote. So if he would have pissed anybody off anymore, he loses this game. And a lot of people, it comes down to Greg asking a question of, 1 to 10, pick a number. And then he goes back and he sits down and he votes for Rich. Now he has said in the, after that he was going to vote for Rich anyway, but still, it's still crazy how close Rich was to losing. And we'll talk about that when we get to Brian as well, because I do feel like Brian also falls into that. But we're almost a half hour in and we've only talked about Rich. So where else?
Well, I want to throw out there, because I don't know if this will be brought up during Jeremy's section of Cambodia, but if somebody's listening to this, we're going to talk about all 50 wins. It's on the table. Like, we're not going to strictly only, like, we're during the Richard section right now, but I'm going to throw out there Jeremy Cambodia. When Kelly asked her question of the number, she's just like Greg. She does the same thing. The number didn't matter, because like in no situation did Jeremy's number win. Like, I think it was like 2, 3, 4. Jeremy was like 3. It's like, or Jeremy's 4. I forget what his number was, but it's like, okay, did she go with Greg's number? Did she go with her number from her answer? Either way, it didn't matter. Like, it didn't matter. It's just like Greg asked the question. It didn't matter. It made for good TV, but it didn't ultimately matter.
But ultimately came out as Jeremy winning 10-0 anyway. So
yeah. Could you imagine? Well, Jeremy, you said the wrong number, so it's 9-1-0 instead.
Who would she have voted for? Spencer or Tasha? Anyway. Yeah.
Don't know.
Not this podcast, guys. All right. Let's move. That's Cruises says Jeremy was 2.
So it's like Kelly's answer, I think, this season, when she's asked that question, is 3, and Rich says 7, and Greg's like, the answer was 9. So it's like Jeremy said 2, and it's like it wasn't 3, it wasn't 7, it wasn't 9. Jeremy was not. Yeah, he wasn't even close.
The number was Jeremy. She just wanted to ask the number. All right.
Yeah.
Shall we move on? Shall we move on to Tina?
Yeah, that's the end of Richard's section. Good winner. We both like him. We're over here struggling to find faults in his first game. I think that says a lot about Richard.
I agree. All right, let's go over to Tina then. And I know, so for me, and I don't know how you feel about Tina yet. I forget what you said 6 years ago.
I like Tina.
I feel like Tina's probably the most underrated female winner in the history of the show, because I do think a lot of people thought this was so easy for her. And this is what I was talking about earlier. I think people who watch the show now don't realize how difficult this was. And I always favor, and trust me, when I'm doing my winner rankings, Gabler and Bob are both in the bottom 10. But I do favor these older winners because there have been so many old people who have played Survivor, and generally they go out right away. And I know Tina coming into the season was like 42 or something like that. So she was right on that older, air quotes, quota, especially in the older seasons where they were putting on 60 and 70-year-olds. But I do feel like to be able to be an older woman and do what she was able to do was really impressive considering the boot order the season before. Now, I know Sue went far, but Sue also got lumped in and never had a chance to win. She was not winning that season against anybody she sat next to at the end. But Tina found a way to go up against who I would argue might be the best runner-up just from their single runner-up season in the history of the show. And she managed to beat him anyway with a jury that wasn't really antagonistic towards him. So I think Tina's game is supremely underrated, and I don't think people quite understand what the power of Tina really is in Australia.
I think it says a lot. So I know you said you watched the season live. I watched this season live as well. The first season I watched was Borneo when they re-aired it in the fall. I didn't watch it live in the summer. I watched it re-aired because by then it was a phenomenon. And as I think at that time I think I was a year or two older than you. So I was like 9 or 10. When I watched it, I didn't know that Hatch had won, so I watched it unspoiled. So I enjoyed it. But this season, I think it says a lot, Phil, that when you get to the decision that Colby has to make between Keith and Tina, that the moment he picks Tina, everybody goes, oh no, Colby made a mistake. Tina's going to win. Well, why did we all say that? Because this was the consensus at the time. It's like everybody knew the moment he picked Tina, he had lost. And it's like, well, why do we all know this, right? It's only season 2. It wasn't like Edgic wasn't a thing. You know, Tina got skunked the first episode, no confessionals at all. So I'm sure people who are like hardcore into the show, like, oh, they're doing the opposite of Richard. Where Richard, they told us right away. With Tina, they're telling us nothing. But even then, I mean, we're 2 seasons into a show. How did we all know? How did we all know Tina was going to beat Colby? Why were we not surprised when Colby lost to Tina? Because I wasn't. The moment he picked Tina, I was like, clearly should it be Keith? Yeah. Keith isn't liked, or at least that's what the show's portraying.
He went 7-0 or 6-1 against Keith. Jerry probably still votes for Keith, but even that would have been hard for her.
I don't think Keith beats Colby either, but I'm saying the show had portrayed it in such a way where it's like, this is the decision, and if Colby doesn't pick Keith, he's going to lose, which is crazy because Colby only loses Tina by 1. Colby, by the way, seems unbothered. I don't think he's ever been. Maybe he was bothered. He never, ever in anything I ever saw during the season, after the season, ever been bothered that Tina won, which makes me think that his goal was never to win this game. It was like if he won, fantastic. If he didn't, it's fine. And I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. It's just everything I've observed of Colby behind the scenes stuff. So what do you think, Phil?
So much of this comes down to, well, first of all, I have to say, in my family, when I was 9 years old watching the season, we all thought Colby was winning, no doubt. Right. When Tina ended up winning, we were like, what the hell? How does she win? Because my family was very much like, well, she couldn't survive on her own in Australia. It's like, well, she's the one who went and got the rice. Like, I don't know.
That's how we thought about Survivor back then. It's survival.
Well, and I do think that part of Colby's whole thing, and this goes back to what was happening in season 1, was people were really playing this game to like work. They were worried about their reputations. They weren't worried about, they didn't know what the ceiling was. We had road rules. We had the challenge or whatever. Road rule versus, what is it? What's the other one?
I don't know where you're getting at. I know that The Amazing Race aired after this show, so that wasn't on yet. Not that that's the same thing, but it's in the same genre.
What was it? It was road rules versus. Now I just need to know for my own self. Road rules versus the real world, and that's what became the challenge. And so my whole point with this is like we had those things that were kind of here. but nobody knew what reality TV could be. And so Colby comes out there and he's worried about representing himself in Texas well. Every morning I wake up and I thank God I'm a whatever, and I thank God I was born a Texan. And like that is his thing. He brings out the Texan flag. Colby wants to be a hero. Colby wants to be seen as a guy who's a really positive influence.
Because Hatch was ripped apart by the public, and everybody this season knew it and didn't want to be that.
Yeah, except for Jerry, who really doesn't even do anything villainous the entire season.
Yeah, I know. That's all perspective. I know we're here talking about Tina, but even Tina, she dogpiles onto that. And it's like, yeah, Tina, dogpile onto Jerry. What a jerk Jerry is. But then, like, when you write down what Jerry did on paper, you're like, I don't think Jerry did anything wrong. Or if she did, she was just a little annoying, you know? Yeah. Like, so minor, but the show doesn't portray that way. They had dramatic music. She's like tying her boot, talking to Colby. She's like, I forgot what she even said. Like, the scenes burnt my brain. I'm like, Jerry's so villainous, but it's the music, it's the editing, and it's also why I think Tina, you said she's underrated. I think part of that is the editing is trying to make sure this winner is not disliked, and so they're scared to like portray Tina as this mastermind, because really she was running the alliance. Colby deferred to her, and Tina, I think I called this an onion alliance. I know that's a thing later in Survivor. I know it's a thing on Big Brother. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like her, Colby, and Keith were like the inside layer, and then Jerry and Amber were the outside layer. Like it was not equal standing in this alliance, where I feel like in Hatch's alliance, I didn't feel like they're like, maybe Hatch and Rudy were an inner layer, but Hatch is okay with cutting Rudy at 3. So he wasn't really the inner layer of the alliance. They were all kind of equal. And I think Hatch was fine with going to the end with anybody of the 3. I don't think Kelly and Sue were closer, but then they fight. So it's like that alliance didn't feel like, they all felt equal in their own different way. But this season, it's like it's very clear it's Keith, Colby, Tina, and then Amber and Jerry are on the outside, there to take votes and knock them out. And actually, I think that's what Tina's worst move was. I think she knocked out Jerry 1 vote too soon. That was really risky to do that, because Amber could have flipped very easily. Not that Amber did, or that's in Amber's personality, I guess, but she could have. Like numbers wise, that was really risky to vote Jerry when they did.
The biggest problem at that point was Roger and Elizabeth, I'm sorry, hated everybody else so much that they didn't even care. Like, they weren't, again, coming back to this playing to win mentality. I think everybody wanted the $1 million, but people weren't as cutthroat on the season as they are now. So when you get rid of Jerry at 8 and now you're at final 7 and it's Tina, Keith, Colby, and it's very obvious that is the strong alliance that's going to be the final 3. The other 4 doesn't team up. And the other 4 knows that none of them are involved in it. But Roger and Elizabeth literally just don't want Amber or Nick to go any further in the game. And I think that's what's so interesting about these older seasons. And you can say, well, it's dumb gameplay, but these were the people who were inventing the game. And this is what they decided the game was going to be early on. It wasn't going to be necessarily playing to win. And if you think about it, everybody on Australia, and you can argue not anymore, but they all won at the time. Most popular season, that premiere or that finale, whatever the hell it was, had like the most insane amount of viewers. I think on an episode by episode basis, it was the most average viewers per episode in the history of the show. Colby goes on to be on Curb Your Enthusiasm, do all these other acting things. He's in Red Eye.
Go ahead. He hosted, I keep wanting to call it Top Gun. It's not Top Gun, Top Shot. And I haven't watched it since it aired, but if you haven't watched Top Shot, people, and you like guns, it wasn't a bad show. I remember liking it. So I want to throw that out there.
And you had that. You also had Keith goes on to be like a celebrity chef. Jerry goes on to be in Playboy and do acting. Amber comes back and plays again. Like, Amber also does her thing, gets married to Boston Rob, is now a Survivor icon. Elizabeth Filarski becomes Elizabeth Hasselbeck on The View for the longest time. All of these people won by, like, you were benefiting from being the character you were on TV. And I think that Australia is where people started to realize, okay, there's something here. They saw how big the cast of Borneo was, and they said, I can start to make this something for my life. I can start to maybe turn this into a career or a launch pad or something like that. And I think Colby might have done the best with that, because Colby never wavered from being the good guy Texan, which ultimately leads to Tina winning the game. But Colby, there's a reason why he's now played 4 times. He's the last remaining hero in Heroes Villains. he gets a really, really emotional send off in 50. Like, it makes sense why they wanted to keep bringing him back. It was because he refused to go against his beliefs. And it all started with the Mitchell boot. And the Mitchell boot is Tina's best move by far in the game. It's when she takes total command. And it is funny to think that at final 12 of a season, final 13, because that was 13th place, the whole season was over at 13th place. The final 3 had been determined at that point.
I wanted to continue. You already moved on, but I want to continue off of the crazy things from this cast. Did you mention Nick's a congressman now?
No, but he's in Washington State, right?
Yeah, I forget where he's at, but Nick's a congressman now. Other crazy things that I think have gone under the radar. Everybody knows about scooping. Okay, that's
not a good thing. That's a lot.
The crazy thing about Australian Outback is everybody trusted scooping after this season, despite what we saw on the show. But I think the craziest thing that always gets forgotten about the season that Deb, I think, was after the season was like dating her stepson.
Yep.
Yeah. It's like one of those things you're like, wait, what? And apparently at the time she was being harassed about it. So it's not like, I don't know. It was known, but it's like something I like never hear anybody talk about. Like, it's not out of all the things to like find out about this season. Every time that it's like in one ear out the other, but this time I'm looking at the cast. I'm like, why do I remember Deb? Oh yeah, that's why.
And Rock.
Right. This cast, man. What a cast. Oh, Kel. Actually, believe it or not, Phil, I know somebody who worked with Kel in the military, and he believes that Kel did bring beef jerky on the show.
Most people believe that he brought beef jerky on the show.
Yeah.
Most people do believe that is kind of the story in Survivor, is that he really did have something.
Yes. The person, I can't name them, but they worked closely with him, and they're like, I 1000% believe that based on everything I know about him. I'm like, okay. Oh. And they don't even watch Survivor, by the way. Like, they just know that their I can't say buddy, their person that their acquaintance Kel was on the show. And when I said the beef jerky thing, they're like, oh yeah, I heard about that. And I believe it. And it's like, okay, well, there you go. So Tina, now you're right. I think the Mitchell vote was huge. That was a huge one because they could have lost the numbers there. Tina could have, and that was huge. And I know Jerry got so ticked but like, of course she did. Jerry seemed like she had the numbers till that Mitchell vote.
And this was the vote that changed the rules in Survivor history, if I'm not mistaken. They were in this vote.
Really?
Yes. If you watch this,
is it because of the past?
No, it's not because of that. If you watch the episode when they're going to tribal, they don't really have footage about it being Mitchell. And the reason they don't have that is because there was like a foot tapping scenario going on in the truck that was essentially Tina, Colby, and Keith tipping each other off to vote for Mitchell on the way to tribal council. Yes, I believe it's a true story.
Because this is back when they actually walked to tribal. They didn't take a boat there or whatever.
Yeah, whatever it was, they pretty much made the decision on the way to tribal without ever speaking to each other that they were going to turn on the other group, and it was going to be Mitchell because Mitchell had the past votes. Right. And so after that, that's when it was like lockdown, no talking, no anything. You're on your way to tribal. That is the end of this. And so what's interesting about this vote is Marilyn had just gone home. Mad Dog and Tina were like best friends. Tina had no problem cutting Mad Dog's throat, getting her out of the game. If that was what was going to be better for Tina, she does vote for Mad Dog. And then it was this Mitchell vote, though, because it seemed so obvious that it was going to be Colby, it was going to be Amber, it was going to be Jerry, and it was going to be Mitchell, and they were just going to take out the two older people. They were going to take out Keith. And Tina essentially was able to convince Colby, you don't want to be with Jerry, you don't want to be with Amber. If you do this, they'll just take Mitchell, and you and me are the next two people out. Come with me and Keith. And if we vote for Mitchell, Mitchell has that extra vote. And it is without a doubt her best move. And it is like this, to me, I would argue is the first move in Survivor history is the vote out of Mitchell, because it was a moment of
taking advantage of Jenna thing. I thought the Jenna thing was a huge one. Taking advantage of Sean's vote for Jenna. You think this was? I mean, this is probably the first move of this season.
In power. I think that's why it goes to my head, because it shifted the power, whereas the Jenna one kept the status quo. This did change the way that the game was going to be played.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, I'm with you. In terms of perfect game, Tina, 3 votes off, got no votes against her all game, but of course, Colby got 3 votes for him at Font Tribal. Final Tribal, where so Tina so close, like actually went through the whole game, not getting any votes against her, despite being the head of the alliance or the brains. I don't know if she's the head because Colby's really the face of the alliance, winning 5 immunities, and of course being Colby, but Tina was the brains of the alliance. And I think once again, it's like Hatch winning, Tina winning, I think progresses the game in a good way because again, it rewards it, or at least I don't know, it could be good's a word. Because like, what if Colby had won? What would have happened? Like we already established Hatch, then Colby, but with like Tina winning, it's like establishes, okay, strategic brain is important, because while Tina's social game was good, I think Colby's was good too. Like they both had good social games. It wasn't like either had a bad social game.
I always say that Survivor got very lucky with who their winners were in the first 4 seasons.
Yeah, first 4.
You had a gay male villain. You had an older woman. You had
Southern
a black
woman, but that was very much her thing.
Yeah, you had a black woman, and then you had a very likable younger guy.
Yeah,
and it showed that anybody could win Survivor. I mean, because then a black woman doesn't win Survivor for 38 seasons after Vecepia. Yeah. Crazy. So it really established it early that like anyone could win. And you're talking too, we were just talking about Borneo. You were getting voted off early if you were older. I know Rudy makes it further, Rich makes it further. We have to think like Rudy, there was definitely production interference. We all know this.
Yeah, it's literally a lawsuit. Yeah.
For Tina to get 0 votes when Colby wins 5 immunities. So if they are trying to vote out somebody in that alliance, they have to vote for Tina. They can't vote for Colby. Maybe you vote for Keith. And the thing is, she's the 4th or 5th oldest person on the season. Her and Keith were the same age. The only ones older were Kentucky Joe, Deb, and Mad Dog. Those
and by old, by the way, Tina's 39, which is not old.
Yeah.
It's just on the season. You're right.
I mean, we're almost there.
She was considered older.
Yeah. And so it's fascinating that she gets no votes against her. And how can you really knock her for not getting all of the jury votes at the end when she's sitting next to Colby Donaldson, who wins 5 immunities and is the all-American hero? And this was back during an era where people really respected that person more than they do now. Like most people now, you see a guy who comes out, wants to be a cowboy, has his Texas flag as his luxury item, and is talking about how he's so happy to be a Texan. They're going to probably play him off as a dodo. Not in 2001. That was not the case back then. So for her to beat him is pretty unbelievable in the grand scheme of things.
It's worth mentioning, you asked, Tina getting away with no votes. The rest of her alliance, was not the case. I mean, obviously, because other people got voted off, but like Jerry, 12 votes. Those 12 weren't all in that one tribal that she got voted off. Amber, 6. Keith, 10. Colby, 9. These are votes against them. This is nothing to do with Final Tribal.
The only thing that's interesting about Colby's is 9. All 9 of his were at the same tribal. So I don't really fault him for that.
But the point is that they were targeting him over everyone else. Like they weren't targeting Tina at any point, even though they should have. Really, they just need, if they had, I don't know, they really needed to get Amber. Like when Jerry went, that was their chance, and they failed to capture Amber. They really should have had her, but like, I don't know if Amber would have done it. Like, I don't know. I can't.
Yeah, because Amber at that next tribal, it's so funny. Amber votes for Nick, Nick votes for Keith, and Roger and Elizabeth both vote for Amber.
Yeah, like they couldn't get their crap together. It's like Pagong again. Like, except they should know. In theory, they should know better. But
so
Tina's worst move was, in my opinion, Gary and Jerry. What's her best move?
So I have to bring up another one because I think the Mitchell one is incredible.
Yes.
But her best move, there were 2 moments where Tina took control of the game. One was the Mitchell move, because then her, Colby, and Keith had control of the Ogakor Alliance. And people forget, Ogakor was down 7-5. If Scoopin doesn't fall on the fire, there's a very good chance that Ogakor is an afterthought in Survivor history.
Very true.
But the other moment was at Final 10, when it's her and Keith standing on the perches in the endurance challenge. And Keith says, I need this. And Tina says, really? And he goes, I have all the votes against me. They're going to vote for me.
Mm-hmm.
I need this necklace. And she has the humility to step down and let Keith win it. And that seems so simple now. It seems so obvious. This was an era of Survivor where people weren't thinking strategically like this. Like this wasn't happening. And so for Keith and Tina to realize, as long as we protect Keith, there's nobody else that it can actually hurt us. Like if they get rid of Jerry, okay, whatever. But I think at that point, Jerry didn't have I don't think Jerry or Amber had any votes against him. No, because everybody who went home, Jerry had 2 votes.
Yeah.
And then Keith had 4 or 3, whatever they were going to count it as. I don't know if they were going to count it on the revote, but essentially Keith needed to win immunity. And Tina said, okay, fine, I'll let you do that. And that's
Jerry
how
had 1 vote against her to answer your 2. She got 1 from Cal and 1 from Maryland on their way out the door, but not as many as Keith. Keith had 4.
Yep. And Jeff had 2. So even if it was Jerry, because Kimmy spilled the beans, that Jeff had 2 votes against him or 1 vote against him. And then they all pretty much assumed Kimmy was going to vote for him on the way out. Jerry and him would have tied, and I think they would have done a trivia challenge, but there would still been a chance. So Keith was the only one where Ogakor lose the numbers. Ogakor gets that. They get rid of Alicia next. Then they can get rid of Jerry and still have the numbers because nobody was overly concerned about it. It really is such subtle gameplay, but that's what the early seasons were, and that's why I really enjoyed these earlier seasons. And I just think Tina's game, super, super, super underrated. And we don't see an archetype like her win for a very long time after this.
This is my last thought on this season. And then if you're ready, I'm ready to move on to Africa. It says a lot that back then the Survivor got more money after Borneo. So they decided to make the season longer as a result. Of course, they'll never do this again. But 42 days, they're like, let's make a longer season. They would never nowadays. Never. Never. They'd rather stick to their guns than expand the season to be longer. You know,
to be fair, it also leads to the worst finale in the history of the show because it's just Keith, Tina, and Colby for 2 hours. I didn't need that in my life.
Yeah, I'm not arguing for more episodes. I'm saying the number of days because they still had 16 people. They just spread it thinner instead of maybe they should have had 18 this season. Again, that's not Survivor wouldn't have done that. They didn't even consider a tribe swap yet. You know, they weren't going to consider doing 18 people yet. So, anyways, Tina wins she has the longest season that she had to win. That doesn't mean it's the hardest or anything. I mean, physically the hardest, but maybe again.
And that's the best. That's the best trivia question there is. Who has played the most average days of Survivor? And that is Keith Famey because he played 41 days on average. That is the best trivia question there is about Survivor.
All right, let's move on to Africa, Phil.
Africa. All right, so we have Ethan Zahn. As a child, this was my guy. Ethan.
Yeah.
Big Tom, Lex. This was like my favorite trio ever. I loved Colby, but then this trio showed up and I was like, oh my God, how do I play Survivor? How do I be like these guys? But I will say Ethan's game ages like milk, not like fine wine, in my opinion. And I do think that it is a game where a lot of so Africa has one of the most interesting votes in the history of the show, and we'll get to it. But Ethan's game was very much about like, Lex is really driving a lot. Now, Will, always says that Lex is more like coach than he is a real game player.
And literally, Lex wins a truck, so he was driving a lot.
He was driving a lot. There you go.
Yeah, he literally was driving a lot.
You have Big Tom, who was a serious threat. And Ethan just played like the nice guy game as well as he could. I think Ethan has one phenomenal move, but otherwise, I think things kind of fell into Ethan's lap throughout a lot of the season. But Ethan was just so damn likable. That's why he's played 3 times. He comes back and plays on that disastrous Saboga tribe and is like the last remaining winner on All Stars. Like there's a lot to like about Ethan, and I still love Ethan. But I do think that out of the first 5 winners, I actually think Ethan's aged the worst.
Ethan's has the least to learn from. Like if you're going to go back and learn from games, I'm with you. Like I like Ethan as a person. I like him as a character, I guess is the way to put it. But Ethan, like his win, like what is there to glean from this? What is there to learn from Ethan's win? And I don't know, because Ethan starts the game and it's hard to remember this sometimes because you're like, oh, Ethan, Lex, and Tom. It was like that from the beginning. No, it was Lex and Tom, and Ethan's like, I want to play this game all by myself to the very end. Like, Ethan, did you even watch the first 2 seasons, buddy? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Vecepia. No, I'm just when I look at Ethan's game, what I find really interesting about it is that on Samburu you had old versus young, right? Yeah. That was the storyline over there. The 20s versus the older people, and Frank and Carl just driving everybody nuts, and then Lindsay and Silas being just as annoying. But then on the other tribe, that division didn't happen, which allowed for Ethan to play both sides so well. And I think Ethan is a little bit sneakier than people give credit for, but we don't really get much of that in Africa. But the move that I love from him, he's the one who decides, because he gets left behind. People kind of forget this. Ethan gets left behind with Kim and with Clarence when they do the twist, the first tribe swap in the history of the show.
Yeah.
And Ethan realizes that he doesn't know what's going on the other side, but he knows on his side that Frank and T-Bird cannot stand Silas at all. And Silas is trying to buddy up with Ethan right away because, you know, they're young, they got a lot in common. And Ethan goes right to the camera and says, I think we should throw this challenge to get this guy out of here.
Was that in the show? I always forget.
I forget if it was in the show or not, but it is definitely in deleted scenes if it is not actually in the show, because I've seen
in deleted scenes. In the show proper, I think the show was afraid to encourage people to throw challenges. Like, it was still too soon for that in the show. But I'm with you, because like that clearly is what happened. But I think in the edited show, I don't remember them ever saying that. But maybe it was a deleted scene. Maybe it was I don't know. They didn't have a. This wasn't like a season.
I own the DVDs for that one.
Yeah, yeah. I do too. I own. If I panned over, I own all 43 of them. I don't know why they stopped. Yeah, I do. I don't know why they stopped after 43. I mean, I can understand why they did. But they I don't know. Like, I would have bought 40. Not that I want 40. I own all 43 of them. By the way, for those wondering, DVDs stop being worth it for bonus features once you hit Worlds Apart. Through San Juan del Sur, they at least have stuff that's like you can't find online. But after that, it's just deleted scenes, basically, in terms of bonus features. Yeah, I would say through San Juan del Sur, though, there are legitimately bonus features you cannot find anywhere. Other than that, it's just deleted scenes once you hit Worlds Apart through. Oh, and Ponderosa. I guess that's worth mentioning. When they had Ponderosa.
So Ponderosa is in Gabon and stuff?
Ponderosa starts, yeah, and the DVDs, they start in Micronesia and go all the way through 41.
Oh. Maybe I have to buy the Gabon DVD then, just so that my wife can watch the Ponderosas of them not talking to Crystal or Kenny.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And Corinne they have like a little I think it's what you're referencing, Corinne and them. They're having like a little cool kids group, and she's like cuddling in bed with Charlie and Marcus. Yeah, it's all on the DVD. I wish this is stuff that they should have all this on Paramount Plus. I know we're a little off topic, but like they should be releasing everything they have for every like this season. You're referencing that they said it's camera. Maybe they did. Maybe there's a scene that has that, and I haven't seen it, and it needs to be on. Like, why is this all non Paramount Plus? That's a missed opportunity. You have just throw it on there for us. We want to watch it.
I totally agree with you. And I'm reading right now. I'm on True Dork Times, and it says Mama Kim and Ethan threw the challenge to boot. I haven't watched Africa in a long time, but it is like known. And I do think you're right, though. Maybe they don't as outwardly establish that it was a throne challenge, and it's more of like a question mark. Yeah. Ethan throws this challenge, and the whole thing is like, that is so ahead of its time. And then by the time you get to Pearl Islands, they're okay with it. But Survivor didn't want people thinking about throwing challenges. They wanted the competitions to be like full tilt boogie, as Jeff says all the time. Like, he wanted everyone going.
And I would argue in Pearl Islands that it was still very much like, don't do this. Look what happened to the tribe that threw a challenge. Like it, and to be fair, they did collapse once they started throwing challenges. So it's like, I'm with you. I think Survivor didn't want to encourage this kind of behavior. Kind of like that. I mean, that's what they do though when they edit stuff. Like it's all of the time, but they're really like, here's what we want to encourage, here's what we want to discourage. And sometimes they're blatant about it, sometimes they're not. Look at Jeff getting onto Austin and Pearl Islands for quitting. That would never happen nowadays. No. Never. But back then, that's what mattered to them. So Ethan, I think his best move, I think we're in agreement, it's the Silas vote. It has to be, because after that, it's not like Ethan won final immunity and picked Kim over Lex. Like that would be the smartest move, but Kim picked Ethan over Lex. And of course, this is I literally asked Ethan this in 2020. So dude's had time to think on it. I asked him if he had won final immunity, who he would have taken. He says he would have taken Lex. Is this true? Up to you. Did
he think he beats Lex or no?
No, I think Ethan was on the understanding that there's a chance he loses to Lex. This was off. This is not like an interview or something. I just when I was talking to him. So I think of course he's reflecting on something that happened 18 years ago. Yeah. This was filmed before 9/11 or 19 years ago at that point, before 9/11, but airs after 9/11. And I don't know if that affects, you know the story at all. You know, I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, and so when we look at Ethan's game, when he makes that decision to throw the challenge to get rid of Silas, what he also does is he confirms that Baran will have the numbers once the merge hits, because he knows at worst then it's 5-5, and he knows T-Bird and Frank are not going back to the other people. Because what's so compelling about Africa, and I actually think Africa is a supremely underrated season. Blake and Will do not like this season at all. As we've been going through Every Season Matters over on the Patreon, we've been re-ranking the seasons as we go, and we just got through Korong. And I have Africa ranked like pretty high up, and they both have Africa really low because they say it's kind of boring and tedious. Sure. I love the characters on this season, but the other thing that I think is fascinating is this is the first season of Survivor we see where there's actually an uneven amount of each tribe hitting the merge. And so we get Baran up 6-4. And we get them almost flying too close to the sun at Final 10 because they decide to vote out Clarence. And I still, to this day, don't know how how Kelly Goldsmith goes home at Final 9, because it is so laid out perfectly. Ethan, Kim J, Lex, Tom, they all vote for Kelly. But Kelly has flipped. She's done. She doesn't want anything to do with them. And she convinces Frank and T-Bird to get back together with Kim and Brandon goes, nah, I'm going to go with Lex. And he votes that way. And we almost had what ends up happening in Marquesas had almost happened in season 3. And I think Kelly Goldsmith is an incredibly underrated player of Survivor because the move she tried to make didn't work. But this was what was compelling. And Ethan, you could argue voting out Clarence is his worst move, even though it was what everybody in his alliance wanted to do.
Yeah, strategically, it could have hurt them the most. It didn't. Kind of like Tina voting off Jerry, I think a vote too early. Didn't hurt them, but it could have. So I don't have winner rankings. I'm working. So for those who don't know, every year since 2022, I do an annual season rankings and winner rankings video where you all fill out these Google forms. And I think like 4,000, 7,000, I forget. It's like thousands and thousands of people. I don't remember in front of me that fill out these forms every year. And so I can give you season rankings for the seasons we talked about so far, but I can't give you winner rankings yet. I'm literally working on that tomorrow. It'll be on our my Patreon. Check out both Patreons, apparently. My Patreon soon. Season rankings will be on there tomorrow for sure. But I can tell you, Phil, so you said you had Africa ranked where?
So this is only through 32 seasons, just so everybody is aware, because we're going through and we're doing it in order and we're trying to take out like too much what do you call it? Like bias. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I have it at 15 through the first 32.
Well, okay. So the fans that did the voting, they have Borneo at number 14. They have Australian Outback. I'm looking at my other screen for those wondering. Well, Australian Outback's at 22, believe it or not, that low. And then Africa is at 17 out of 50.
Okay. So you have some old school fans there then. I have Borneo very low. I have Australia pretty low too. I have Borneo.
It does seem like year after year, Borneo, Australian Outback, and Africa gets a lot of votes because I have an option on the forum for you didn't watch this season, so that those people, they aren't affecting the rankings. They can just say, I've never watched this, which is fine. That way we can just get people who have watched it ranking them. Yeah. And I think a lot of people do vote they haven't watched Borneo, Australian Outback, and Africa. So it's just people who have watched it.
And most of them are going to like it.
Yeah. Right. And then you get people who, there are certain people who I think are just like, oh, this is a new era season, recency bias, bad, that's not a majority by any means, but I can kind of tell when I see year after year, like, okay. And then we get a little bit away from a season and all of a sudden it's being ranked more fairly. But like for 50 and 49, I'm sure it's not going to be the same as next year. I'm sure next year the rankings will be different. But those, I feel like that's kind of where they've been every year, is around 20. Around the 20 range. And I think it's fair. I think Africa's a beautiful location. The strategy leaves a little bit to be desired. I think what's most interesting is Lex and how aggressive Lex is and how he's probably the first, in my opinion. I guess Richard Hatch is an anti-hero. I think Richard Hatch is the villain, though. I think Lex is an anti-hero. Like, he's not a hero. He's an anti-hero because I don't ever see him as a villain on the show, the way they portray him. And I don't know if you agree with that, but Ethan is a straight hero, and the show is like, oh, finally, we have a straight hero, and it doesn't feel like the show has to work around like they did with Tina, in my opinion, to make him into a hero. Like Tina, they're like, oh, let's not really focus on.
Colby to me is the first hero, but because Colby doesn't win, you also have to
sorry. I meant
flaws.
I
right?
meant purely for winners. My apologies.
Yeah.
I don't mean as
Yeah.
a character in general.
Okay.
I said just for winners. Like, okay, like is Richard and Tina heroes? I don't think Richard is. Tina, up to your discretion. But I think Ethan is like, there was no question.
Yeah.
He was a hero, and he was generally well liked. And I think it came out really well after 9/11, when I know, for those who weren't around, like, it was an emotional time for those months afterwards. So like watching Africa and seeing that, okay, the hero won. Thank goodness, it wasn't another Richard Hatch. Because I think a lot of people left after Australian Outback because it's like there was other priorities at the time. Africa did not air at a normal. I think it like ended up running into January, which doesn't happen anymore.
But the last episode was January 10th. The first one was October 11th. But what was interesting is that January 10th episode was like back from Africa. So it wasn't the finale. The finale aired right before Christmas, so it still hit that. But yeah, I mean, the strategy leaves something to be desired, because what happens is after Kelly goes, what's going to happen the rest of the season. But I think it benefits from the fact that Lex, Ethan, Big Tom are so entertaining. We hadn't really seen characters like that. I agree with you. I think Lex is the first anti-hero. I think that Ethan is just like such a likable guy. And then you have Big Tom as comedic relief. You'd never had a character on the show like Big Tom. I know people laugh with Rudy and stuff, but you literally had a clown on the show who then you have Kim Johnson saying, Tommy knows what he's doing. He wants people to think he's stupid, but he knows what he's doing. Yeah. And I think Tom, people forget, after All-Stars, Tom had the record for most days played Survivor.
Gosh, I think he has the record for most weight loss too, and I think it was this season.
I think he lost 80 pounds on Africa.
Oh my gosh, it's insane.
Insane.
I would have loved Ponderosa videos, by the way, for seasons 1 through 14. Not that I expected them for seasons 1 and 2, but not that I expected them, I guess, at all, because I know why they came up. By the way, so my suspicion, Phil, by the way, the reason Ponderosa exists, I could be wrong, is that up through Fiji on the DVDs, season 14, you get CBS interviews like the next day, like here's our next day interview, and here's a secret scene from the episode. Well, they stopped doing that after Fiji, probably because the season sucked. Also, people weren't caring. But then China, they don't have that. All of a sudden, they have deleted scenes by themselves, not like terrible, by the way, audio quality, like all over the place. But then
not color corrected or anything,
I think that and like it just wasn't very good. It was definitely the weakest, and because Fiji was always like, here's what we showed on CBS, and it's like it's well done, it's prepared, it's kind of short. But then you get to Micronesia, it's like, well, we're not on CBS, so what can we do? Ponderosa videos. Yeah, that's a way. That's a thing we can put online, because internet video is just becoming a thing. So, just my suspicion.
I watched every single Ponderosa video up until Game Changers, and I didn't really watch any for Heroes, Healers, Hustlers.
Oh, really? Wow. Yeah. I don't really remember if they. I think the best ones were. I mean, the Winners at War ones are pretty good, but yeah. Anyways, point being is, I wish Africa had them, because wow, what a location, what a season. Would love to hear what people think afterwards. But yeah, Ethan. So his best move is Silas. What his worst move? Did we come to a decision on what his worst move is?
I think it's voting out Clarence, because once you did that, you opened up the door for Kelly. And if Brandon makes arguably the dumbest move in the history of the show, because he would have been able to get back to the right side of the numbers, it would have been him, Kelly, and Kim Powers.
Yeah.
They would have been able to go through. T-Bird and Frank would have gone home. What's actually interesting about this season, because Frank and T-Bird they liked Kim, but they didn't really like Brandon at this point. And Silas and Lindsay were the problems. Yeah. Frank and T-Bird could have actually found themselves in a middle position after this. And Africa had the potential to be the first truly chaotic season of Survivor. I'm kind of glad it didn't go that route, because if it did, I think Survivor would have peaked too fast. I think Survivor went on a very natural progression. And when Sesternino comes in season 6 and changes up the style of gameplay, I think it made sense to happen there. Because if that happens in season 3, now you want that to happen every season. And I just think that the show might have fizzled out too early, because people would have fallen out of love with the adventure aspect of it too early. And the adventure portion of it is what was drawing people in early on.
So Ethan, I don't think I mentioned this so far, had 0 votes against him all game. Misses perfect game by 2 votes. Really, I don't think he had a chance to get all 7 from what I recall. But
Brandon wasn't going to do it.
He had a chance to get 6 because this goes by the edited show, is that it looked like the reason Brandon didn't vote for Ethan is because Ethan's answer to Brandon was horrendous at Final Tribal. You're talking about Ethan's game aging like milk, which really that Final Tribal, like kind of like the perfect indication of Ethan, like, are you trying to win? Like, thank goodness, I guess that's not close. because Kim could have won. Not that she had a great final tribal, but Ethan's final tribal was atrocious.
And what was it? The question was who would you take off the jury or something like that? And he says Brandon.
Yeah, and it was Brandon's question. He picks Brandon, and Brandon goes to vote, and he's like, out of all the people to say this to, he's like, on my question, you said me. And he's like, I'm voting for Kim. So like, I can't say for sure that he wasn't gonna vote for Kim already, but the way Brandon was talking, I'm like, Brandon's not like a professional actor. I think Brandon's legit like baffled. And he's like, I guess I'm voting for Kim. Like maybe it was a 50-50 and Ethan could have won him over, but Ethan did nothing to help himself. Ethan was just being honest though. Ethan's like, no, legit, I would not. Like, but like Ethan was not thinking I want to win 6-1. Ethan wasn't thinking trying to get the perfect game. Ethan was thinking honest, which works, but also in this case didn't work for a vote.
I think also Ethan knew he was going to win, and I talk about this with Heidick all the time, which we'll get to in a second. But like the goal of Survivor, if you got to the final tribal, was to know you had 4 votes. Right. And Ethan knew he had 4. He knew it. Like he knew he had them, and that Kim's game just wasn't strong enough to get votes at the end.
It's worth mentioning too with these winners in these early seasons that it was competitive because you have 4 through the first 5 winners, which we're talking about today. You got 4-3, 4-3, 5-2, 4-3, 4-3. Like it was competitive every time. It wasn't a landslide vote. There was no like I don't know. Like we don't have a landslide vote until Jenna with Amazon, and even that, like you didn't know it was a landslide until Jeff read the votes.
Oh, viewers had no idea Jenna was going to win that season.
Yeah.
No, nobody knew. It was really the first one that felt like a landslide that was a landslide was Sandra versus Lil, because everybody knew Lil had no shot. That was the first one that actually felt like a landslide. It was shocking when Jenna got 6 votes, and we'll talk about that next week. But like people had no clue that was coming.
Right. We're going to do 5 winners a week for 10 weeks. So next week we'll talk about them. But in terms of Ethan, is there anything else, Phil?
Here's my question to you before we move on to Vecepia. You talked about how you like to kind of talk about how far away they were from a perfect game.
Yeah.
But Ethan's the weakest of these first 3 winners. Now, I mean, he's the closest to a perfect game, but in terms of what he actually does, I feel like he does nothing compared to the other 2.
Well, it just depends on how people want to rank winners. Like for me, Ethan's not my favorite of the first 5, but statistically, Ethan was the closest to a perfect game. You know, and it's not like Ethan was running off of immunities and therefore was just avoiding wins because he was just blown. You know, Lex was running the table on immunities from my recall. I don't
get 4.
Like it was Lex who's actually, and Lex still got a ton of votes for him. So I think statistically it's impressive. I don't think Ethan's game would translate to later down the line. I think Tina's game does. I say Hatch's game. I don't think Hatch translates. I think Hatch's game translates. Of course, it's like the basic core Survivor, building an alliance and keeping them together. But Ethan's game, I don't know. Like he literally came in wanting to solo this thing, which is ambitious, but I think impossible unless he was literally going to win every immunity, which he didn't. He didn't get close.
Nobody was doing that. Mason Band, before we move on to Vecepia, hits us with the super chat. Found the specialist channel from this series in 2020. Been fans of both y'all ever since. Well done to us, huh? Making that happen.
Yes, it is true. We're a little older, a little wiser, and I don't know about you, Phil. You have
100,000 subscribers though, so you're allowed to. Yeah, that's a big deal, man.
I just hit that the other day, and for those wondering, I did put a post up thanking everybody for that. And in that post, there's a free. It's a link to a free month of Patreon. So you're here listening, go access that. It's free. I'm going to close that. It's a celebration, but like, I'm not gonna leave it open forever. So I think sometime this week I'll end up closing that link, but you're listening now, go click on it, get a free month of a paid tier. It's not the free tier, it's the paid tier. So get access to everything through that. But yeah, I don't think I have anything else for Ethan, Phil.
Cool. Let's move on to Vecepia.
I said, now this is my favorite winner of the first 5. I know you have a different favorite winner, but this is my favorite one.
Well, actually, I just pairwise the crap out of this the other day. You familiar with pairwise rankings?
No, I'm not.
Well, so I think you are. You just don't know that's what it's called because I didn't know that's what it was called. But it's where essentially if you have a big group of something, like you're trying to figure out which of these 100 movies do I like the most, you put up like the 2 movies next to each other and you pick one.
Oh.
And then you just keep picking and picking and picking and picking.
Yes.
And I don't want to spoil my my winner rankings that are going to be coming out, but I pairwised a lot to like help myself. Vecepia may have passed Brian. I will just say that they are directly next to each other.
You're saying Vecepia did really well. overall.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Because I think that Vecepia's game, and this isn't just because she didn't come back and play again or didn't, get her say at the end. I think that when we consider Boston Rob to be one of the best to ever play, right? Because most people do. He's on the Rushmore. I think everybody would say, even if you don't think he's a great player, you put him on the Rushmore of Survivor players.
Right.
The thing is, Vecepia and him were in the exact same situation. And people will say, yeah, but Boston Rob was a bigger threat, blah, blah. Adapt then, buddy. Adapt. Him and Vecepia were in the exact same situation. He gets 10th and Vecepia wins. Vecepia
You're talking about after the tribe swap, right?
Yes. I'm really talking about that and the merge, because him and Vecepia play the whole game together. Right. And then at the merge, it's 7-3. They're outnumbered. He puts good ideas in people's minds, but he's not able to be convincing enough. Vecepia and Sean are outnumbered 7-2, and Vecepia wins the season.
This is a Samoa type of situation, dude. Like the landslide that they had against them, and for them to pull this off. I know it's not as impressive as Russell on Samoa with the Foa being down 8-4, but you said they're down 7-2. And I feel like the edit doesn't do this story justice. It's almost like the edit doesn't know what they have in front of them. Emphasize that it's 7-2. Emphasize, because they already know the winner is going to be Vecepia. Emphasize your winner is in a crap spot, because I feel like Vecepia's story kind of just disappears for a bit during the post-merge, which is like a weird time to have your winner disappear. And then she kind of pops up in the last couple episodes. She's always present, I guess, but it's like, where's Vecepia, at times? And it's like, well, she's out here doing a social game, which I guess Vecepia is kind of calm, cool, and nice and doesn't want drama. And Survivor's looking for drama, which is why they love Boston Rob, because he gave them 7 episodes. I believe it was 7 episodes of drama. He was out there to be dramatic and to say things that people forget. Like, what he called somebody gay. I forgot who it was.
Yeah, he outed John Carroll.
Yeah, he asked him right to his face. And he's like, and they just left that in the show. And I'm like, what is the show saying by leaving this in? Because they want us to root for Boston Rob, don't they?
Yeah, they totally. Yeah, it's one of the craziest moments. And I've had John Carroll on the podcast a lot. I've never had Rob on, and a lot of people give Rob a hard time for that. I mean, it was a different world in 2002, but it is crazy that you're talking about, one of the biggest people now in reality TV history did that in 2002, but 2002 was a different time. So I'm not going to sit here and say that there weren't other people doing the same thing. I mean, Stephanie LaGrossa on Palau in Guatemala is saying things that you're like, what? She was America's sweetheart. I mean, it was just a different era. And Blake and I, we were having this conversation the other day where we were talking about people nowadays don't realize that, like, what you're seeing and you're cringing at, this is what cool people looked like in the 2000s, in the early 2000s. Like, this is what the country was revering. This is what the country preferred. And like, the country has changed a lot. I mean, Survivor's been on, I always say Survivor's been on for more than 10% of the history of America, right? That's the crazy. United States of America, 1776, 250th anniversary is this summer. And Survivor's been on for 26 years of that. Like, that's crazy to think about. And so things have changed. And what you think is cool now, 25 years from now, people might look back and go, oh my God, that was disgusting, or that was awful. But Boston Rob is dramatic. And I think this was the first season. And I'm trying to get the confessional count up, and I'm going to pull it up in a second. Okay. But this was the first season where the editors actually had to figure out how to make the winner and the runner-up compelling when the most interesting characters were out before them. Right. Because in the first season, you had Richard, you had Kelly, you had Sue, you had Rudy. Those were your stars. In the second season, you had Colby and Tina. And yeah, you had better characters for them line, but you could hype those two up a lot. Then in the third season, you had Ethan, Big Tom, and Lex. Those were your stars. That's who everybody
by association was elevated by Tom and Big Lex.
100%.
Big Tom and Lex.
And that's why all three of them come back to play again on Africa. And I think that's why it's crazy that we haven't seen two of them return, because I think Lex and Big Tom are literally two of the biggest icons in the history of the show. This season, though, you had Boston Rob, you had John Carroll, you had Sean, you had Pascal, and you had Kathy Vavrick O'Brien. Now, 3 of those people made the final 5, but every one of those characters, without a doubt, was more compelling, at least from a confessional standpoint, than Vecepia and Aaliyah.
Sean was fantastic, by the way. I love Sean. I think Sean was robbed of ever coming back. I don't think he's been asked, and if he has, if he said no, whatever, but like, Sean is like, I forget it until I watch season. I'm like, Sean's amazing. Like, what great casting they did with Sean. Fantastic find. And they did not bring him back, which is a shame. It's not like Elizabeth Filarski, who I think is just like continually denied Survivor because Survivor wants to do a White Lotus with her and be like, look what she's done since Survivor. Like, look what Mike White's done since Survivor. It's what they want to do with her. And she probably knows that. But like Sean is like just fantastic confessionalist, like with strong opinions. And Vecepia, think like what we see is her relationship with Sean is really compelling, in my opinion, because Sean elevates her, right? But she also like Sean and Rob are like openly fighting with John Carroll. Like, what do you said this and this and this and this? Cuts to Vecepia. There's so much drama around here. It's like, there are people relating to Vecepia, but there are also people relating to this fight. Like, you did say this. Like, why are you lying to us? But there's also people, and I am like, my wife would be the one to be like, there's so much drama going on. There's no need for all this drama. Like, you get both sides, and Vecepia is the side of no drama, which does not make for good TV. I think that's why they haven't brought her back, but I really like her. I think that she has unique personality, but the show is, as you said, not really interested in focusing on her. And I wonder, Phil, how much of the edit is affected by 9/11. Of course, they were going to film in Jordan. I think this is a well-known fact, is that they were going to film in Jordan and then like, well, throw everything away. We have to throw together, we have to cobble together season real quick because we're not missing airing in the fall. I'm sorry, in the spring. So we got to cobble together a season. It's like the night before the project's due. Got to cobble together. Let's have a kite challenge. I wonder how much of the storytelling and edit was affected by that. Like, was there a shorter time frame to get the story together than they would have had they filmed, season 4 at the time they're going to? Because I feel like they filmed it later, therefore they had less time to produce the season in post.
Yeah, I mean, it was back to the beach, right? And so I do think that was kind of the mindset of back to the beach, and this is what we're going to do. And I think what they didn't know how to handle, and we'll get to this when we get to Cook Islands as well, because they go to 20 characters at that point. But this season specifically, they did not. What was that?
They have more people this season?
No. I'm not talking about that. What they didn't know how to handle on this season, I'm just comparing it to the Cook Islands one. What they didn't know how to handle on Marquesas was the underdogs completely taking over. Hunter Ellis being the third boot on this season, they didn't know how to prepare for that. They didn't know how to edit that. Like, Hunter Ellis gets 13 confessionals on this season. That's 8 more than Zoe, right? And Zoe finishes 8th place, And I don't think they knew when they were creating this show. They got really lucky the first 3 seasons where you had Hatch and Rudy, right? Who were these big, larger-than-life personalities, and then you had Kelly and Sue. But then in season 2, when it became a reality TV show, you had Colby Donaldson as your guy with the white cowboy hat, and you had Jerry with your black cowboy hat. And then season 3, you have Lex, Big Tom, and Ethan, these massive personalities. When they're putting the cast together, they're saying, great, these are our characters who are going to carry us through the season. Right. And then we'll have some good side characters like a Kim Powers or a Brandon randomly or Kelly Goldsmith that might pop up.
Here's our main characters. Here's our sidekicks. Here's our villains. Here's our comic reliefs. Like defined roles that they already had in mind, probably when casting. And none of the main characters made the finale.
None of them, except for Kathy. Yeah. And Kathy was the underdog. Yeah. That's why Kathy finishes this season with 77 confessionals. The next most is 49. Like, that's how much she dominates screen time on this season, because Hunter, Gina, Boston Rob, John Carroll, those were supposed to be the winners of this season. Vecepia and Nalia were supposed to be the sidekicks.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't know how to edit that. And it shows. I have the confessional count here if you want to hear this, because it's crazy what happened.
No, go ahead. I don't have it in front of me. So, tell me.
So, Kathy Vavrick O'Brien had 77, which was the most on the season. Sean had 49. Pascal had 47. Okay. Nalia had 39. Vecepia had.
Yeah.
What was that?
One for every day.
Pretty much. Vecepia had 38, but 15 of those 38 were in the finale.
That's what I mean. Was there any episodes where she got zeroed, by the way, skunked or whatever?
There were 2. Right at the merge. The merge.
That's what I'm saying. The merge, she disappeared. What the heck?
Yeah. And here's the craziest part, though. Gina, who gets 11th place, has 37 confessionals, 1 fewer than Vecepia.
What?
Because Gina was a star.
Was Gina was she trying to date Jeff Probst? Is this a Julie Berry situation? Why'd she get so much screen time? What?
It was crazy. And so Gina, when people would always say if they were going to do a pre-merge season, who would you want to see the most? I always said Gina. Gina had the record for most pre-merge confessionals before Say came and did it in season 48. That was the trivia question. Was before
Gina. 90-minute episodes? Before
90-minute episodes.
Oh my gosh, I forgot Gina had so much. Holy
Yeah.
crap.
So Vecepia, they just didn't know what to do with her. And I think that's why people disregard Vecepia's win. Now, is Vecepia the best TV? No. I would love to see Vecepia play again, though. Yes. And I think that Vecepia's game to be outnumbered 7-2, to align with a group, to get yourself into this 5-4 advantage when you're down 7-2. And people will say, well, she wasn't in control of this. She wasn't in control of that. It's in Survivor, you don't always have to be in control. It's knowing when to give up control. And she knew she was done. So what's her alternative? Either go with the 7-2 and get voted out as one of the next 2 votes, or join the 3 people who are going to outnumber you at final 5, but take your chances once you get to 5. She knew Sean would go before her. Now she gets to 4. She wins 2 immunities. Game over.
Yeah, and Vecepia, I think, is basically played the strategy I think that Ethan wanted. Not that Ethan wanted to play. Basically Ethan came out of Ethan's mouth is the strategy I think Vecepia ended up playing. Not that Ethan would have done it this way, where she's like a lone wolf. She just moves wherever she needs to be by herself. People aren't really focusing on Vecepia as a threat, despite the fact she's kind of votes wherever she feels like she needs to. She goes with whoever she feels like she needs to. You know, and I know that at one point they say like, oh, me and Sean, we're not working together. But I think they vote to get with each other every single vote with the exception of one. And it's like, okay, like you can say you guys weren't working together, but I feel like, okay, well, you were moving with Sean or Sean was moving with you, but they were with each other. But like it was never, and it was portrayed in the show they had a relationship, like they were friends, but it wasn't like, oh, this is our alliance. How can we move as a twosome together on everything? It was definitely Vecepia just kind of doing her own thing. And I think that completely, as you said, the show had grown accustomed to who should be the main characters? How should we edit the show? How should the story be told? Like they're getting their footing, but they'd only done a certain way. So here's a lone wolf, an underdog lone wolf who is not a big character. And they're like, what? How do we tell the story? And I wonder if Vecepia won the same exact game in the new era, for example, if it would have been portrayed differently. I mean, they won't publicly admit this for whatever reason, but after Erica, they changed how they edit winners. I don't know why they won't just say that because it's a good change, but they're like, no, we need to go season by season.
Well, now it's become too obvious because if you have a confessional every episode, you're in the running. If you don't, you're out. Right. That's been the problem.
But yeah, I know they had during 50 man, they had a Variety article and just like, we don't change nothing. And then they added the show, I forget who the editor was or whatever. The guy who's been there since season 1. He's like, oh yeah, we do a season by season basis. And I'm like, no, you don't. Not for the winner. No, you don't.
Yeah,
no. There's no need. Why lie? But
yeah, not anymore.
It's the average public doesn't know that there is something you can identify. But Vecepia, I really like her. I think what I like the most about her is her character because we're talking about statistically, Ethan is the best of the first 5. Vecepia is 5 votes off from perfect game, gets 4 at Final Tribal, gets 3 against her. I feel like she did the best she could at Final Tribal, but at Final Tribal, this felt like the one of the first 4 seasons where people talked to the final 2 the most, and there was the least number of questions.
Well, and it's what Sean says, though. He comes up and he says, you all walk around and you all backstab and you do this. But as soon as we say we're religious, we're not allowed to do that. And you try to throw that down our throats. Yeah. And it was such a great, it was this advocate speech that was so well done. And I think really rung true for a lot of people. And I said earlier that Vecepia wins 2 immunities at the end. She doesn't win the immunity against Nalia. Nalia wins the immunity, but Vecepia makes a deal with her essentially of, I'll let you win it, but you got to take me. And Nalia does that. And then Kathy and Pascal both vote for Nalia. But Sean's speech is able to get. Yeah. Kathy votes for Nalia at the end of the game is what I'm saying.
Right.
Like, gotcha. Okay. But the thing is, like, you had Sean make that speech, and then Robert, Tammy, John, they were so disgusted by Nalia blindsiding them and going against them that they'd rather give it to Vecepia. And Sean just like drove it home enough. Like Sue hurt Rich, Sean benefited Rich, and that was the biggest difference.
Benefited Vecepia.
Yeah, I you know what happened. We're an hour and a half.
I know, I got you. Just making sure. I'm telling you, at the beginning, I said people will actually us. Oh no, I'm like we're slipping. People are gonna start getting us.
I got to get my other point out though, because as you talk about perfect games and stuff, Vecepia votes correctly every single time, with the exception of the Sean vote. And
Yeah.
she votes for Nalia at the rock draw, which like Pascal goes home. That's stupid. I'm not counting that. She votes correctly every time with the exception of the Sean vote, which she was obviously never going to vote for Sean, which is impressive on this season where you have a 5-2-1, then a 4-3,
Right.
then a 4-2. She does vote for Boston Rob. Like there was a lot going on this season and she plays along.
And to be clear, for those wondering, the perfect game is not defined by whether you voted for the person who won every time. But I think for some people, it's an extra thing to look at. I'm of the opinion, though, like, I don't know, you could vote the wrong way every time. If that's what pleases the jury and gets you to sweep them, then fantastic. Mm-hmm. Look at Fabio. We'll get to him eventually. But like, not that that was his intention. Let's be clear. But you get what I'm saying. Like, if this is what makes the jury happy and you clean sweep the jury, cool. They want you to vote wrong every time, I guess. I don't know if that would be rewarded again, but fantastic.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
But you're right. Like she wasn't going to vote for Sean. She knew Sean was going. She could have voted for Sean. So Vecepia was always in the know. She was never out of the loop. She knew who was going, and she was lone wolfing it. She was just voting for whoever needed to go. And I think that helped keep the target low on her because had her and Sean, we're sticking with Rob, stick to our guns, gotta keep this alliance together, even if we're down 7-3. If they had done that, they would have been gone. The next 2 votes, next 3 votes, whatever. Like they wouldn't have lasted very long.
To me, the best trait of a Survivor player is can you adapt? And I don't think Boston Rob can adapt. So Boston Rob always falls lower in my rankings than he does for others. I know you can argue that he plays an amazing game in All-Stars and essentially won the game, but he doesn't win. He doesn't get the votes at the end. He can't adapt. Vecepia adapted. And that's what I think is most impressive. And that's like, even when I start looking at other players, like when Tony comes back for Winners at War, people are like, oh, well, because of Game Changers, his threat level was lowered. Not really. Tony managed to lower his threat level by deciding to say, I can't go crazy on this season. I have to play a calmer game. And we'll get to his win. But like Vecepia didn't have control a lot, but like you said, she was always in the know. And she was willing to let other people take the reins when she didn't feel she needed to. And it wins her the game. And she adapted to the situation at hand. Out of the first, I would argue probably out of the first 8 winners, she had the hardest path to win. But people don't give her the credit for that of the path that she had to take. Outnumbered 7-2 in a game with no idols, no anything. And she wasn't completely underestimated like Jenna Maraska. Like Jenna Maraska, a lot of people thought they could just keep around for as long as they wanted, and there was no way she'd get to the end because they didn't think she had an immunity run in her. Vecepia wins 2 immunities from, I think, at Final 5 and then again at she wins at Final 6 and then Final 4.
Yeah, I'll double check that.
Yeah, double check that, whatever the hell it is. But
yes, you're right. It was Final 4. She wins it because that's when they do the rock draw for the purple rock, and that Final 6.
And Final 6. And so she gets to win those 2 immunities, but she didn't need them. And people still like she was threatening, but she wasn't, and she wins the game.
She may have needed the one at the purple rock draw, but
that one she did.
It's not because I think Pascal, Nalia, and Kathy would have dogpiled on Vecepia. So I think she needed that one. I don't think they wouldn't have held together on the tie vote. They would have broken and been like, okay, we're voting off Vecepia then. Like, we're not going to go to rocks for Vecepia. Yeah, is my thought. But the other one, she didn't need it because the general was going. Robert was already going. Didn't matter.
And let's think about this before we move on here. Think about the drama around these Final 4 votes. First season, tied 2-2. Kelly switches her vote. Second season, not dramatic. Third season, they mess up. The challenge, with the questions, the challenge was wrong, and Big Tom and Lex both end up getting paid out third place money or second place money.
The tie vote, they did questions in season 3. That was their answer to pass. Like, no more pass votes are doing questions. For season 3.
And I'm just saying at Final 4 though they made the mistake, and then here they weren't supposed to go to rocks. This was a mistake of the rules. They did not do this properly. I forget what they were supposed to do, but it wasn't supposed to be rocks.
Shoot, I don't even because like they didn't have fire making wasn't a tiebreaker challenge yet. That's season 10.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Anyways, Vecepia, what's well, I guess we got to quickly do this. What's her one definitive worst move?
I would say her worst move was probably latching on to the Boston Rob and Sarah train early on when they vote out Patricia. Because then she ostracizes Hunter and Gina. And let's be real, Vecepia has a great arc here and a great underdog story.
Right.
If you keep Hunter and Gina and Patricia and you get rid of Sarah there, your tribe is Patricia wasn't very good at challenges, but your tribe is a lot stronger if you're not trying to vote out your strongest people. She doesn't know what swaps are coming. She doesn't know that you're going to get this different, whatever it was, 8 to 5, I think was what the swap ends up being, because they did it along what the tribes were at. She doesn't know what's coming. So willingly getting rid of Patricia and then getting rid of Hunter and continuously weakening your tribe. Patricia was what started that process. I think that was probably her worst move, because in the post-merge, she doesn't make a bad move.
And then her best move, I'll throw this in the ring. I think when she makes the deal with Kathy at Final Four over the tie vote, I think it's when they did it. And then again, when she just decides, screw Kathy, I'm going to go with Nalia. I know it's not one move, but I feel like it's kind of a continuation of the move, because it sounded like after she made the deal with Kathy, she's going to work with Kathy. But then like she saw Kathy dropped. Okay, Nalia, you want to go to Final 2? Like, that's just like, it's like so indicative of her whole game. But I think it's her best move is like, who makes a Final 2 deal? No, nobody's out here at the final immunity challenge anymore, making final. Hey, take me to Final 3 and I'll drop this challenge. Like, nobody does that. Nobody does that. Nalia and Vecepia did it though.
Yeah.
Like Nalia, I don't know. Nalia, I guess, couldn't win either situation because she wasn't beating Kathy from what I know.
Kathy wins 6-1 over both of them, because Pascal would have voted for Nalia and Sean always votes for Vecepia, but it's 6-1.
Right. Right. Yeah. So, yeah, I think unless you have a better move for her, I think that's her best move. And it just is indicative of her whole game.
Yeah, and I would say it's the Final 3. I would say it's the Final 3 one, because the Final 4, that's so wonky, and it was really supposed to be that Pascal was going to go home anyway because the votes were between Kathy and Nalia, so whatever. Mm-hmm. But, like, it was getting into Kathy's head being like, they're going to take each other. Like, you have to win immunity. But that move at Final 3, because you could say, well, it was at Final 9. No, that's really more of Kathy's move. Kathy's move is at Final 9 to flip it on Sean. And it's actually a 6-3 vote, which people don't realize because Zoe goes along with them too. Zoe sucks.
Zoe.
So, but the thing is, when you look at that Final 3 move to make that decision and kind of put Nalia in the bad person position, it worked, and it got her to the end, and she knew that she had a chance if she got to the end, because that Rotu tribe was so pissed at Nalia for flipping.
All right, so Vecepia 5 votes off a perfect game. Very quickly, Marquesas, where do you think it's ranked out of 50 seasons by the fans?
I would say like 25 or 26. I think fans aren't as high on it. I have it at 14. I have it at 16, right behind Africa. And it probably only drops to like 20 when all is said and done through 50.
Sure. You're pretty close. 28th this year is where it finished. So.
People don't realize how good this season really is. There's so many good things in this season. And the cast is way better than people give it credit for. But the General and Zoe are so boring.
This season proves, I'm sure they had this cast going into Jordan as it was. It just shows that the cast, above all else, carries a season, because production-wise, hastily thrown together season, but the cast carries it. And it just goes to show casting's important. It's all about the cast at the end of the day. So let's do this. We only got one season left for tonight. And I think you're higher on Brian than I am. I don't think I'm very high on Brian. I think I'm okay on Brian, but I'm not like super high. But I think you like Brian from what I understand.
I think Brian, if you were to say to me, pick any of the winners of Survivor and put them on any season, who wins the most times, I think, and again, you don't know this person. It's an all newbie cast. And you say every winner comes out and plays an all newbie cast. Who wins most of the 50 seasons? I think it's Brian. And people might laugh at that. This man was a sociopath. He did not give a shit about anybody's feelings at all. He walked around and was so nice to everybody's face. And as soon as he got in a confessional, it was like, these people suck. Like he doesn't say it as outwardly. He's actually not as much of a villain as you might remember if you rewatch Thailand. But I think that Brian played, he had figured out Survivor, and that's why Amazon is so important, which we'll get to next week. But Brian had said, wait, if I get the 5 within the 8, and then I get the 3 within the 2, and then I have a better deal with every person who's in my 5, I'm going to the end. And now my only goal is to get 4 votes at the end. And people knock him a lot because he only beat Clay 4-3. He only gave a crap about getting those 4 votes. And he knew Chewy Gon did not respect Clay at all. And then Jake Billingsley just respected him more. He did not care about the Sukjai people in one at all. Like, did not care that they existed as humans. But he got in close enough with Jake to get the vote from Jake. He goes into that final tribal council knowing I have 4 votes. It doesn't matter. He didn't play like we talk about now. People try to play for legacy, get the 7 votes, whatever. He played for 4. And I think that Brian actually broke the game a little bit. And it was so good that Sesternino followed because he had figured out he wasn't a fan of the show. He was an absolute recruit. He had no clue. Yeah. But he knew it was all a math problem. And he could solve the math problem, and he didn't care because everybody sitting around him was a pawn. And when he's sitting there and Clay is like, Brian is a class act. I can't wait for him to meet whatever. And then it's like, oh, by the way, Brian did softcore porn. And by the way, Brian's a used car salesman. And by the way, Brian, and it's like, Brian's actually kind of a bad guy. And yet he had convinced everybody he was like the man. I
somehow better than
Clay. Both seasons of Survivor.
Yeah, because if Brian took the right person to final 3, that's really, I mean, he wins like 3 immunities, I think, maybe 4. He wins 3 immunities. He doesn't get any votes against him all game. I'll double check that real quick. No votes against him all game. Yep, no votes against him all game. He's 3 votes off a perfect game because 3 goes to Clay. You're right. Brian did not care about anybody, and basically, I don't know if he perfected, but he definitely mastered what the beginning of Survivor was, where it's just take an alliance to the end, had the most number of votes. Like he wasn't very flashy. He called himself an ice skater. Of course, he has the infamous confession where he flips off the camera because he's like, or like he's like counting down. He's like, this is this person. He's like, oh, whoa. What are they would never show that, by the way, anymore. But the fact they left that uncensored in the show is insane considering where Survivor is now with their family friendly approach. But yeah, Brian, where I'm not as high on Brian is I guess it's partially because the season is such a hard watch. It's a drab for me. Like I think the location's interesting. But again, it's like the hastily thrown together Marquesas season is more interesting because the characters, whereas Thailand, where they clearly plan Thailand and clearly plan the season out, is not as interesting. And it's like because of the cast. And so I think partially, like if Brian was on an amazing season, let's say he won Pearl Islands, for example. Like let's say he replaces Fair Play. That's a hard one though. Again, because Fair Play is so much needed. Let's say Brian replaces Burton. I don't know. I'm trying to think of somebody who like,
and that would make sense. Good-looking younger guys, at least younger by Survivor standards. Then,
or replaces Sean, whoever was on the tribe with Rupert and Sandra. Let's say Brian's on that tribe and he ends up winning the season, beats Sandra 4-3. I don't know who he's against. That's it. He's a better winner automatically, it seems like, because the season's so good. Like Brian's not gonna drag down Pearl Islands. Pearl Islands was Pearl Islands whether Brian's there or not. Mm-hmm. Brian would have said the same crap behind their back in confessionals that he did here. And you're right, he's not like super villainous, but he's villainous in comparison. But I think what does me in on Brian is that like the whole Ted thing goes down with Gondia, and Brian's just like, okay, Ted, whatever you say is fine. Like Brian did not care at, like you said, sociopath. Did not care. He's like, yeah, okay, I trust you, because he doesn't care. It's not that he trusts Ted. He just doesn't care. He doesn't care that this was happening. It's like a massive event happening in his tribe. He's like, yeah, it's fine. Everybody else has an emotion one way or the other. Brian does not care. He's like, I don't care.
Well, and I can get that, right? It's kind of like the whole artist versus the art. I understand why people don't like Brian. Like, I get it. I mean, and then he goes out and he shoots a puppy. Like, you know, and honestly, I think Brian has actually changed his image big time in recent years. From what I understand, at least.
He has?
From what I understand, yes.
Okay.
But I haven't, I've never personally met Brian or anything like that. I mean, honestly, I'd love to do an interview with Brian, because I'd love to see like if he even cares that Survivor is a thing that happened in his life. But the interesting part about this season is everybody hates Thailand. And then Brian is kind of this like negative person that wins the game. And it's really the first negative person to win Survivor.
Unlike Hack, I feel like he's the first real villain to win the show.
Yeah, he's the first real, like when Jeff says he doesn't want villains on the show, Brian is who he is talking about. Brian was not asked to play for All Stars. Brian was not asked to come back for Heroes versus Villains. Like Brian has never been asked to play Survivor again, because Brian essentially duped Survivor.
Because I don't think they knew where he came from. Like, I don't think they knew about the softcore stuff, like you said. But I think Brian, from what I understand, Phil, correct me if I'm wrong, and I very well could be. I think he was asked back for All Stars, but he asked for a bunch of money, and they said no. And he's like, And then I heard him on a podcast. I don't know when this was. I believe it was with Fair Play on his channel. And it was like the only interview I've ever heard of Brian post Survivor. And okay, he's still the same, like, I gotta say, he still sounded the same in terms of like how he like expertly avoids answering questions and stuff. Such a used car salesman, but it did sound like that he did ask for money for All Stars. Again, he didn't like directly answer the question with a number, but in his own Brian way, it sounded like he did.
Well, maybe they were trying to get all the winners then, and Brian asked for money, and then it was like, all right, screw this guy. Like, we don't even need to talk to him.
Right. I don't know if they paid people to be on All Stars because I think they just doubled the prize that season for everybody instead. But I think Brian asked for money up front, and they were like, no, it's okay. Like, you're not that. We don't need you that bad.
No. Like, and he wasn't popular when he won. Like, when I talk positively about Brian, I remember Brian was facing Kenzie in the Entertainment Weekly bracket, and Kenzie beat him, and I just thought that was crazy because I think, like, again, I think very highly of Brian, and I think Brian just plays this like he is a Survivor winner. He's just not a great guy. But my thing was, I remember saying like Brian should win this, and somebody was coming on pretty much calling me like a sexist and like a terrible person and like all this stuff, and it's like, you're just missing the point. I'm talking about Survivor the game. And I think Brian is one of the best winners because I think that Brian, if you think about this season, okay, Thailand's bad, and it is bad. But the thing with Thailand is it's another one similar to Marquesas that has a really bad boot order, but then there's no benefit later on. So when you look at this boot order, you lose John early, you lose Gandia, Rob, Xi'an goes out before the jury. Xi'an, Rob, and Gandia are all on the cover of Survivor Thailand. Like, that's crazy. And none of them make the jury phase of the game. And so you have a bad boot order, and then you have a pagonging. Your only true pagonging other than Borneo in the first 5 seasons. And really, I think that might actually be the case for the first 7 seasons, because then I think All Stars is the next one, but then Xi'an even screws that up. Anyway, it's a pagonging. But what happened was, yes, the fake merge screwed things up, but Xi'an was always going to flip the Chewy gun anyway. So
I think so. Xi'an was looking for somebody to accept her.
Yeah. So what was going to happen on this season is Chewy Gon was going to be the final 5 of the season. And with the 5 people that Brian had, he couldn't lose, and every single one of them thought that they were going to the final 2 with him. And that's, and to me, if you, like, you know, we talk about all these different stats and stuff. If you can end the game of Survivor at final 9, which he does, I mean, how, like, that's as dominant as it gets. I think it's truly one of the most dominant games in the history of the show. It's just not very fun to watch.
Yeah, and I think that's, for me, that's why I say, when, like, statistically, Brian's a better winner than Vecepia. But it's like, okay, do I really like Brian? Do I want to watch Brian win again? You know, these are all factors in terms of I don't have Brian. He consistently gets ranked last or next to last every season. I haven't even looked at the form yet for winners. I said I'm doing that tomorrow. I can tell you, though, like 4 years in a row, it's going to be 5 years in a row. He's going to be the worst winner or the next worst winner. And it's because we're humans. We rank things based off of emotion. We just do. So, like, statistically, he's in the top echelon. He's only 3 votes off a perfect game. But he got, I mean, like, Clay got 3 votes. You know, like, Clay. Like, Clay, what a runner-up. Thailand also, speaking of bad rankings, on the season rankings this year, it had been ranked the worst from 2022 to 2025. But this year, surprisingly, moved up 1 spot to, well, I don't know. I mean, it moved up from being from the bottom because now there's 2 more seasons to add on. It's 49th out of 50. Island of the Idols has actually dropped below it.
And I will say this, when you watch Thailand and then you watch Redemption Island back to back, Redemption Island is so much the worst season. It's like not even close in my opinion.
That season consistently does terrible too. It's 46, it looks like.
To me, see, the way we keep doing it when we do our rankings, me, Blake, and Will all have Redemption Island ranked last through the first 32 seasons. And like, I talk about it as like whatever, like the worst thing of that season we're currently talking about is like, you know, you're in the Arctic and Scott Pollard keeps dumping water on your fire. And then below that is Redemption Island. Like, Redemption Island is so awful that it's just like, to me, it's like almost unwatchable. Thailand still has the old school charm that I appreciate. It has the location. I like that they picked the tribes early. Like, I do appreciate that stuff. And truly, I find Brian's game fascinating because it was crazy to me that you could go 5 seasons in and people just be so blinded by somebody who was just like,
So fake.
this is a business trip, dude.
Yeah.
Like that is the easiest $1 million Brian has ever made in his entire life. Ever.
Has to be. Because like they just handed it to him. And in fairness, it's not like Brian walked in and they handed it to him. He worked. You're right. Like emotionally, definitely has to be the most emotionally detached from the show and from the people he was with out of every winner. And some people are like, wow, like this is the most gamer way of winning, especially in the old era. But human emotions jump in, and that's why Brian never ranks very high I believe in the season rank or in the winner rankings, but it's statistically better than a person I like more in Vecepia. So Brian's most definitive worst move, what would that be for Brian? Is it the fact that Clay got 3 votes? Like, yeah, we say Brian wins against anybody in his Chewy Gun Alliance, but Clay was not the best of the Chewy Gun Alliance, and he still was 1 vote off.
But the thing is, people think that Helen could have beaten him, and it wasn't happening. Like, Helen just was not liked by the Sukchai people, and neither was Brian. But the thing was, the Chewy Gun members were always going to vote for Brian.
Could Ted have beaten Brian? Like,
I don't think so.
I don't know if the Gandia thing, like, I don't.
But here's
know if that was known.
I think the other thing that really helped Brian, though, and you could say, like, well, what if these other people get there? The Ted vote was 4-1. The Helen vote was 3-1.
Yeah.
Right. They always knew that those were the people they were voting out. And Brian wins the last 3 immunities, but Brian's not going home if he loses one of those immunities. Like, it's still, maybe Ted doesn't go, Helen goes. They all thought they were sitting at final 2 with Brian. Mm-hmm. And so maybe the Chewy Gon people would have felt like they were betrayed equally. And then they would say, you know what? Helen, you got there. I'm going to vote for you. But there was no chance they were going to get there because Brian got to final 6 because Jake was the man left, really final 7 because it was Penny. He got the final 7 and it was like, guys, I am the favorite in every immunity challenge now. Like, there's no way any of the people I don't want to say, he wanted Jan or Clay at final 3 or final 2 with him. He was guaranteed to get one of them pretty much from final 7 on.
Right. Somebody would have needed to run the table on immunities, and like that wasn't going to be Ted. Ted's a big guy. Jan is she's like I'm not like judging these people, but based on what we saw, like she's an older lady. She's a bit thin. She don't look like she was in immunity winning shape. The only one that could have competed was Helen from what we saw. And clearly that wasn't happening because Brian was like winning. Clay, I don't know if Clay got close. Like, I forget if anybody got close to Brian. I know one time he screwed up spelling road trip on the car reward challenge, but it's almost like, was this 4D chess? Did he know the car curse? I mean, the car curse had only been 2 seasons if I knew about it. Which, by the way, Jeff saying the car curse ended with 50. That's just Jeff talking. That's not how the car curse works, Jeff.
He just
Amber broke it. Give it away during the season. If Aubrey got during the season and then wins, then yes, but you can't give it away after.
Amber got it after the season, so she won it.
That's not how the car curse. Like, the car curse is broken. He says for the sponsor so that they could do another car in a future season. Hint, hint, wink, wink. You know, that's the real reason we're saying it's done, not because it really did.
Yeah.
But anyways.
Well, let me just say this too about Brian here at Final Tribal Council, being that I do agree with you that his Final Tribal performance is probably his worst move. Yeah. There's an argument to be made that Clay was actually his biggest competition out of the Final 5 because like somebody like, because Penny goes up and asks, you guys didn't get to know me at all. Brian, do you know my sisters? He has no idea. Clay lists them off. And that's what was important to Penny. And Clay, for as obnoxious and ridiculous as he was much more social with the Sukchai people. Helen wasn't. Jan wasn't. Ted really wasn't. So I think that Clay, there's an argument to be made, was actually the biggest threat to Brian, and he still couldn't beat Brian.
No crap, Sherlock.
No crap, Sherlock. I know.
Just trying to keep PG. But when Clay said that, I was like, only time I think all season actually like legitimately laughed when Clay said that.
Yeah, like what does Clay literally say to Helen? Like, I'm not answering your question.
Yeah, a Final Tribal, but I think they got money. They got money in Jan. I'm thinking earlier season when they got money and Jan's like, a free auction or something like that. And Clay's like, no crap, Sherlock. That's what I'm thinking. Every time I think of Clay, that's all I think of. But you're right. At Final Tribal, he's like, Helen, I don't think there's an answer I can give you that will please you. It's like, are you trying to win or not? Like, we're going to get to Gabon eventually where nobody's, except for maybe Susie's trying to win, you know, like Sugar and Bob aren't trying to win. But like here, it's like, Clay, are you not trying to win? Like that's what Brian got. Brian's like, how do I even if I don't believe it and don't think it or feel like, don't really think it or feel it, how can I just tell them what they want to hear? Clay did not have that in him to just tell people what they wanted to hear.
Nope.
Yeah.
I think Brian's game. So I think his worst move is that. I think his best move, honestly, is just taking out Gandia when it came down to it. And I know people will be like grossed out by that. Taking out, you had to make a stand there. And by taking out Gandia, you ensured that you also had a male number advantage, which on this cast, who was very much siding with Ted on everything that went on, you know, you get the male numbers that they were going to vote along male lines. He ensured that he had a 3-2 in that alliance. Now, Chewy was outnumbered 7-5 at that point. And then it's Stephanie and Rob both go, and then Sheehan because of the fake tribe swap and whatever. But like getting Gandia out of the game, I think Gandia absolutely could have been in that Sheehan position and said, I'm going to that side. And
I want to say that Brian, I don't know if this is his best move, but I'll throw it in the ring that one of his best moves from my perspective was that I know Sheehan was like talking to everybody, but I feel like Brian kind of hooked Sheehan in. Like Ted did a good job. I think everybody did a good job, but Brian was definitely shown as well, like bringing Sheehan in before they revealed the fake merge in a way there was like, she's talking with everybody. Ted's making her feel good. Brian's making her feel good. She doesn't know that Brian just says whatever. You know, I don't know. I mean, it's not his best move, but it's one of those moves that stood out. Like Brian, like just sees an opportunity, just takes advantage of it. Like doesn't question it or nothing, just takes advantage. That's what you're saying about the Gandia thing. It's like morally, it's gross. You know what happened, but Brian does not care about morally gross. He lives in morally gross. He enjoys morally gross. And some people, I think that's why some people vocally every year are like, Brian's ranked too low. Brian's ranked too low. And you said you like Brian because you're like, gameplay wise, Brian's amazing. You're like, I'm not talking about him as a human. Gameplay wise, I'm impressed.
Well, and I think too, like we talked about with these first 3 seasons, people were really worried about what the reputation was going to be and how that was going to help them in their real life and all of that. At this point, Brian, I think, was saying to himself, this is my one chance to play this game. I have a clear path to $1 million.
Yeah.
The only way I screw this up is if I do something that's more emotionally based. There was no reason to do that for him. And like, look, that's cold and that's cutthroat. But if you're getting your chance to play Survivor and all this other craziness is going on around you, are you willing to give up your chance for $1 million to make the decision that is the right decision? And I think that's a fair question to ask a lot of people, because I think a lot of people think they would answer it one way and would maybe go the other.
I got to highlight, I can't do the thing that you can do with some boys comment saying he didn't even remember her name after that was Sheehan. And that's true. Brian did not remember Sheehan's name and just goes to show he was just there to say whatever. Like he reads the moment well, but boy, does he does not care. He does not care. He doesn't care. He doesn't even know who these people are. Like, I wonder if Brian nowadays could even tell you who is on his cast.
You know, that's going to be an interest. I'm going to get you an answer to that one day. I promise you.
If you get Brian on, just be like, just don't even, but you can't give him the answer. You have to like be like, hey, who's on the Chewy Gone tribe with you from the beginning? And just like, see if he knows.
I am telling you, man, I'm going to get you an answer to this question one day. I promise you. Going to happen. Even if it's not on a podcast here, I'm going to be able to message you one day and say, hey man, guess what?
Brian only knew half of them.
Yeah. Brian didn't actually know what planet he was living on when he was out there. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah.
We are going to be moving on. So next week's episode is not going to be live. Next week's episode is going to be pre-recorded. So just so everybody in the chat knows, because I know that the chat goes crazy. Look, Wes has made a living out of pre-recorded videos. We've made our living out of live videos. His living is a little bit better than our living in terms of what I see on YouTube. So we're going to try this out next week. Yeah. We're going to see how this goes. I'm going to say like the video. I'm going to say subscribe to the channel. But Wes, what else do you have going on before people see us again next Thursday?
Yeah. As I said, I'm dropping the definitive the 2026 season rankings video. That'll be on Patreon, our Patreon tomorrow. And then next week, Monday or Tuesday, will be the winner rankings, where I can speak next time you and I record. I'll catch everybody up on what the first 5 winners were ranked, and 6 through 10, since that's what we're doing next time, season 6 through 10. But if you want to watch the video and see like how they were ranked without having to wait week to week, that's where to do it. But if you want to just follow along this podcast, go ahead. I'll reveal them week by week, like the winners we're talking about. So
I love that.
That's the big thing I'm working on. It worked actually literally, Phil, up until 15 minutes before we recorded. I was like, oh shoot, I need to like get ready for the podcast. I'm still working on the season rankings video. Like it was overtime today, man.
I love that. No, we're doing, and we got winter rankings coming out. Like I said, 5-part series towards the end of this month. I think our first episode is going to be on Tuesday, June 30th. So this is ranking season, man. We're done with another big milestone season. So I get it. And, you know, it's not going to be as busy as last summer was, but we're still going to be working our butts off doing all these podcasts because people are like high off of 50, even though 50's ending was a fizzle.
I know that's I don't know what the popular opinion is. I'm only on, I think social media wise, I'm only on Instagram, but I am looking forward to the open era. I am anticipating new era 2.0, but I don't know. There was something about I thought about it and I'm like, okay, think about this, how Survivor's actually going to approach it, not how I want them to approach it. It's like, okay, maybe Survivor was restricting themselves during the new era to think that we only can do these certain things. It's the new era. We must, and it's like, it should have been the open era the whole time. What do you mean it was? You guys restricted yourselves? Why? You know, that's what it's like in retrospect. Maybe they were because they kept doing the same things over and over and over again. It's like, okay, maybe they're going to free themselves to do, they're not going to do the Cook Islands race twist. Like, I know they said everything's up. They're not doing that. Get real. There's some things they're not going to do, but I think there's a lot of things they can do. And I am looking forward to that. Of course, as always, though, the cast is what makes or breaks it. Twists are just icing on the cake. If the cake's not good, who cares? Who cares?
Yeah, and the twists are just there to ruin the cast if they can. That's what they're trying to do, at least in 50 and in some.
Well, I am looking forward to 51 having 21 people and only 2 tribes and seeing.
Yeah, started off like Fiji. Let's go.
I don't think they're going to do the Palau one where it's like see a 21st person, but I think they're going to do what you said, like the Fiji one where they go to exile or they pick the tribe. I don't know. I don't think they'll let them pick the tribes. Who knows? I have no idea.
If they let them pick the tribes, we're so back.
They haven't done this since Gabon, and every time they do it, it's chaos. Every time it goes crazy. I think Palau they did that. Exile Island they did season 12.
Thailand they did it.
Thailand. I'm not saying it's always good, but I am saying it's always chaos. That's what I am saying.
I agree. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for listening. We will see you next week. If you haven't checked out the Bitter or Better series that John and McKenna started yesterday, it's a series where they talk about how the first juror of each season impacted a season and the winner. So that's kind of a good companion series to go along with this one. They put it out yesterday talking about the first 5 seasons. Tegwith is also doing her Survivor China rewatch, which is coming out on Sundays or Mondays, depending on the week. Otherwise, this is what we got going on. So thank you all so much for listening. Go check out Once Upon an Island's channel, and we will see you all next Thursday.
Bye.